is being held in.
This meeting is being held in accordance with the
Open public
Open Public Meetings Act.
Notice has been.
Notice has been given to the New Jersey Herald and
Posted in the bulletin.
posted in the bulletin
of the
board.
Municipal building.
at the municipal board, the municipal building.
And
Posted on the bulletin board.
website, yeah. And finally, same with the municipal clerk.
And file with the municipal clerk. We have no agenda.
We have no action
It's a
items, so.
Work section.
So this is a budget work session
can't
for
believe you
everyone
realized
today.
No formal action will be taken.
No formal action will be taken.
And there is no executive session or matters of
Personnel or
And
And
contract.
there's no executive session and there will be no matters for personnel or contracts or any kind of negotiation. Everybody stand and join me in the salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I know, Janet, so I looked at the wall, I was like, where is it?
Can we do a roll call?
Mr. Bongiovanni,
Here.
Mr. Falcone,
Present.
Ms. Johnson,
Here.
Ms. Smith,
Here.
Mr. Kukovic,
Present.
Ms. Rodriguez,
Here,
Mayor Galati.
Here. And we also have our CFO, Judy.
Karen.
I was gonna say Curran with us also. Our administrator, Shelby Snow.
I like seeing Judy up here with us.
Okay, do you want to start, Shelby, or do you want to have Judy start?
I'll start and then Judy, feel free to jump in and clarify and correct me as you see fit. So pretty much I started at the end of October and right in November, I immediately met with department heads and asked them for their budget request for 2025 because usually this is done a lot sooner. We're still in the time frame we need to be in, which is good, but usually this stuff is handled a lot sooner in the year. And we are kind of at a crunch point with this. But that's, there's a lot of reasons for that. That I won't get into right now, but so the process really is that I meet with the department heads, they give me their spiel, their wish list, their hey, this is what we have coming up for 2025. Here's what we have spent so far this year. Here's what we know is on the horizon. Here's what we would like to do. All of that stuff. They gave me their capital requests, operating, and again, just things that they knew were coming up. Maybe they knew that they had a contract expiring and the new one was coming up that was going to be different, or like, just things like that, your everyday expenses and whatnot. And so I collected all of those things. Judy came in March and was immediately given everything. And then she also met with all the department heads to get some clarity, to get some updated information, to, maybe read through some of the requests and maybe say like, hey, can we eliminate this, whatnot. So the budget that you have here is, obviously it's not final. The final budget is going to be the one that you adopt in a couple meetings from now. What you have here is a working document, and it's basically, it's the things that we know we have to pay for, and then it's also some wish list items, and then also some, it's again, it's not definitive. So what your role as council and mayor is to go through this, make your decisions on what are your priorities as a council and mayor for 2025. And, there will be things that maybe you say, oh, we don't want to fund that. Or there might be things where you're like, why aren't we funding that? And so that's really what your role is to go through this and you tell us what needs to be changed. Judy will work on the numbers to tell you what that means as far as tax dollars and what that means for the residents and for the financials. And I take what is said here and when the budget's adopted, and I take that back to the department heads and the staff. And that's what I put into action for 2025 are the things that, you know, you tell me by establishing this budget are your priorities. What things that might need to change, what things might need to be prioritized over others. So that's just like a really watered down overview of what you have and what the goal is as far as this whole exercise. You know, I hope that we're gonna be able to get somewhere tonight with an end result. As while we are still in the time frame, we are running out of time to adopt a budget. So we don't have as much time as we, you know, in an ideal world should have to work on this. So that's pretty much what I have. Judy, anything I said incorrect or?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right.
We're just jumping into it.
Yeah, it's so.
Yeah,
Okay, so just on sheet one, the CFO, should that be Judy?
where's that? Oh, the number sheet. On the bottom, yeah.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
The first page?
Oh, yeah, it still has Lorraine. Wow.
It still has John now too.
On the first page, it says Judy.
Yeah,
On sheet one.
yeah.
Oh,
okay.
yeah. she-
I think I actually.
If I didn't pick up, maybe didn't pick up. 'Cause a lot of these are supposed to, you know, all flow together.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she was
The
having some trouble. with
love-hate
the-
relationship with Excel.
Excel,
I
yeah.
get it. I
Yeah,
get
she
it.
said that she had
I made it.
Hey, look,
It's my
I had it
nemesis.
highlighted too. I didn't know we were that far into the budget already.
Well, we're just kind of, I guess, right? We're kind of, if anybody has something, just,
Yeah, honestly, just jump in.
So anything that's blank, like on
Right.
this here,
As a
under
matter
the
of fact,
revenue,
When we talked about, that's part of the problem that we had also. I actually found out that the state document budget, the formula wasn't correct. I fixed it today myself. So the state document was wrong. But
What page?
this is on the first page
Oh,
here.
the first one.
So that's why I've actually fixed that today because it wasn't printed through. But when I talked to Ray, Ray said he felt that just the water and the sewer kind of like more or less stays the same. He wanted us to concentrate really on the current and see what we were doing with that. We actually had that conversation today at 1 o'clock. We talked about whether or not we would tweak some things in the water and the sewer. So if you're okay with that, he said concentrate on the current and he and I will work on the water and the sewer tomorrow. I gave him the numbers this morning, my numbers.
Mhm.
So he's taking a look at that, I guess maybe tomorrow sometime, but that happened because the state document didn't populate. I was surprised I was able to fix the formula when I did.
because that was
Has a
the,
string like this.
oh, I'm sure, because that was my next question, is right down here, these other
Yeah,
expenses.
this
went
is all
from-
gonna change, exactly.
Oh, it's all
This
gonna
should all,
change.
this should all be equal. And those numbers didn't populate, they didn't pick up the right number. See how this is like 333, and this is 2.3? This should be near around the same. So these strings were all wrong. in
I
the
see, so
formula.
then this number is gonna end up being closer
Right,
together.
these will,
Got it.
these should
Okay,
actually
so-
always be equal.
A couple questions on the surplus, because I wanted to make sure that I was reading this right, but we're
Sure.
talking about using 600,000 of the surplus for 2025, right? We're estimating for 2024, the ending balance of 2.5
He
million.
estimated 5.3 and he was looking to use, I think, 1.9.
I thought he was using 6.
The minus 600,000 is the difference
the
from
difference.
24 to 25.
25.
Yeah, that's just the difference that he's using. He's using 1.9.
So
If
on
you go
this
to
little
page 4,
Right.
Ray is recommending that we use 1.9?
1.9.
Yes,
Because Ray told me he was recommending 6.
Anthony, are you on the comparison of
In the
revenues and
total
appropriations?
surplus,
I'm on,
This
well,
is just
I'm looking
our
at the
contribution to the
sheet
surplus.
39
to the
is on.
surplus.
39.
Oh, wow.
Was he talking about what we're using in the revenue?
So on page 39, it says proposed use of current fund surplus in 2025 budget. Now it says the surplus balance as of December 31, and I'm assuming it's this past December 31
Yes,
is 5.1 million.
right, but today he updated that to 5.3 because when you look at this sheet here, even though this paints a terrible picture, if you look at the bottom, he's saying we're gonna be taking some money in as a net. So he was updating the 5.1 to 5.3.
All right, so,
That happened
but does that
today.
mean, based on actually the summary sheet that you put together, Judy, we used 2.5 of that surplus in 24?
And 24,
And now we're anticipating using another 1.9 in
Nine,
25, which is gonna bring our surplus down at the end of 25 to 3.2. If we add
Right,
another couple
but-
hundred, it's gonna be 3.4, 3.5.
and that's a question that I asked him at our meeting today too, and he said, what he's anticipating is, he said way back in the day, and I guess maybe, I don't know who was on council, but he went back maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I think,
Mhm.
right?
None of us were here.
Okay,
I was here.
and he said
5 or 6, yeah,
that
you
the
were.
fund balance was too high
Yes.
and you needed to use it.
Well, that was
Yes.
my next
Right.
question, for, the borough our size, when you take a look at the tax revenue coming in, what's the typical, or what's the more appropriate fund balance to have?
He said, I'm sorry, you want me to? Oh,
No,
go
it's
ahead.
okay.
He said it would probably be 3.8 at the lower end, 4.5 at the higher end.
Okay,
So in terms of generation, I said to him, because there's certain ways you can generate fund balance, and I said, to him, since I'm brand new, I know the ways, but what is the picture that you paint? And he said, it would be appropriation reserves, which means whatever you didn't use in the prior year budgets, okay,
Mhm.
that would flow into fund balance. And he said he was looking at, we would have some increased anticipated revenue.
okay.
And if that's the case, it would go back up to maybe between the 3.8 and the 4.5 where he wants it to be.
Now, the 1.9 that potentially we're gonna use for 25 is not anticipating, or is it anticipating, tax increases and, to generate more revenue?
Well, we are gonna have a tax increase because of the fact that we're using less fund balance, but you don't want the fund balance to dip too low.
Well, I
You
agree
want-
with that, but,
yeah.
so for what we have right here for the budget for 25, is that anticipating a tax increase?
It is anticipating a
And how
tax
much of a
increase.
tax increase?
He's looking at 10%,
Okay,
He's looking between 8 and 10%.
8 and 10%.
okay, but we still have a 1.9 shortfall, even with that 10% tax increase, if I'm reading this properly.
Yes, yes. It would actually be higher than that if you didn't have the 1.9 in there. It would be higher, the amount to be raised, because that's actually low in
Well, the
the amount
amount
to
that
be
we had
raised.
to raise, but we still have a 1.9 shortfall, even with the additional 10% in tax, 8 to 10% tax increase, right?
Well, you're not looking at a shortfall, you're looking at that revenue that you have available to use, so you don't have to increase your taxes as much.
The part I get, but we are increasing the anticipated in this budget, just to make sure I understand this correctly, anticipated in this budget is an 8 to 10% tax increase, which
Yes.
is gonna be 8 to 10% more revenue than last year, roughly. And on top of that, we're still $1.9 million short of being able to pay all of our bills, because we're taking 1.9 million out of the surplus.
Well, I guess you could look at it like that, but that's not how CFOs look at it.
How do you look at it?
We look at it like, in other words, that if you didn't use the 1.9, you'd be increase your taxes. That's how we look at it. So basically, it's kind of like helping your taxes and you have that availability to use.
Understood,
And he actually wants you to use that because he doesn't want the fund balance too high.
too high, but he'd like to bring it down, but we're bringing it down a little bit lower than he would
Right, but he
anticipate.
thinks that he's anticipating it'll be back up to where it's supposed to be.
Did
Why?
you,
Given the fact that he said you didn't spend all your past budgets in the last 2 years.
Okay,
Okay, you did overspend a little bit last year in certain areas, but we actually have to raise that in this year's budget.
Right.
That's why we do have the tax increase. because
Now,
there was an
what's
overexpenditure
gonna,
last year.
if we're using 1.9 million out of the fund balance to make the budget equal for this year, right? Then we have to worry about 2026, right? So now let's say
Right.
at the end of this year, we end up in a good situation where the fund balance is where the accountant would like it, right? Next year, in order to balance the budget, we have to figure out how to reduce expenses or increase revenues, or a combination of both to make up for that 1.9 million that we're using this year, assuming the prices of everything stays the same,
Right,
right? Okay, because, from a longer term picture, I mean, we're solving 2025's issue. But from a longer term perspective, we need to really work on how we're going to make that balance in the future, so we can leave our fund balance where the accountants would like it to be, and our costs equal our revenue cover our costs.
Well, that's what we're planning on doing, hopefully, because there'll be a little more controls in place. I mean, there weren't too many controls, as you can see from all the overexpending.
Sure.
That's
This
one, you
is,
know.
this is from the auditor. Did you read this?
Yeah, I just looked
Yeah,
at it.
this is from the auditor. So this explains quite a few of the cost overruns that, I'm sorry, this is like right in the middle of
Oh,
your
sorry about
face.
that.
Oh, I'm staring at it. But this does explain a little bit of the cost overruns and why we needed to dip into surplus to cover certain things.
Right.
But how can we
But
prevent
that-
this
that
sooner
covers-
than at the end of the year when we're coming into a new budget? Could we stop? You know, could we get alarm reports or something go off within, 4 months, 6 months, 8 months, so that we know, well, we were, not that we want to be part of your office sitting here watching what happens, but I think we should have forewarned at 6 months, these 5 things are overspending.
Well, and I think.
This is actually the least amount from a fund balance that we've used in the past couple
This-
of years.
This will be.
Last year was $2.5 million.
Yeah, last year you spent 2.5 million.
Yeah.
We used 2.5
Compared to
of our
1.1.
fund balance.
Yeah, no, I'm not, I think in general, both numbers are wrong,
I-
horrible. We should not have to dip that far.
I think
I
Christine,
don't know.
once
More.
Ray comes in and Ray gives you his overview of why things are the way they are, I think you'll understand it
Yeah,
a lot better. Or if you had a private conversation with Shelby, or,
Yeah.
they would be able to explain to you exactly what happened.
yeah.
We couldn't have caught those. One of them Ray only just caught 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago,
Well, and we're still finding things.
and we're still finding things.
I think the
So-
difference
so
is
when
too
you
is that
say-
you have a diligent CFO.
Right, that's,
I mean,
okay,
well,
that was
that's
my
really
question.
why-
That's
When
gonna
you
be
say
able
there are
to-
gonna be things in place, that's
Right.
kind of, I guess, what I'm
Yeah.
asking,
Yeah.
what kind of things are
Right,
gonna
right.
be in
Well, and I
place?
think, a lot of the issue for last year, and, we were talking about this shortly before the meeting, was that for a large portion of the year, there was no captain steering the ship.
Correct, yeah.
And the
Absolutely.
ship hit some rocks and is partially sinking right
Yes,
now.
yes.
And now there's a captain on the ship and it's being
It's been
repaired.
plugged up, okay,
Yeah,
all right,
And,
good.
we're hoping to get it set sail
Settle
soon,
sail,
but.
okay.
Judy,
That's-
just for clarification,
that's
this,
kind of
this
where I
money that
just-
we're taking from the surplus, right? There's an anticipation that it's going to regenerate, correct?
Yes, yes.
Did you hear
And-
that?
And as a matter of fact, in this thing right here, you would see, he's painting like, he's actually telling you what's going on here.
Mhm.
But in the bottom, he's saying by doing this, okay, this is the offset.
Right.
So that's a part of regeneration. And then even though we overspent, we're making up for it this year. But a budget is always a 2-year budget, okay? So it comes to the actual current appropriations, then you have appropriation reserves, then you have prior year.
Right.
So I would assume in the prior year, I mean, I didn't look at it because I've been here such a short time.
Sure.
He's thinking that's gonna regenerate, because that's one of the notes that he had us make.
That's gonna come back into.
That's gonna
Come back into the
But I mean, some of
surplus.
these things that he has in here, I mean, and I understand, the overages, right, so pointing that out is really good, right, to help us
Mhm.
identify where it
Right.
is, but some of them are gonna stick, like salary increases, right? We were over budget for salaries, well, that's not gonna go back to normal next year, we still
Right,
have that
no,
same
right.
332 plus,
2%.
whatever, plus.
You know,
Right.
believe it or not, I think we are gonna have a cost savings. I don't know if I could speak to that, but maybe Shelby could speak to that.
Yeah,
You know,
so we did have some changes in staffing that you guys are aware of. So we are not seeing those effects right now, but next year we will for some positions that have changed from full-time to part-time, some positions that were eliminated completely. So we will see, some positive in that regard, but probably won't be until next year's budget.
26.
Yeah,
26.
because we're already
We're already in
quarter of the
April.
way
We'll
in.
almost see half of it
Yeah.
maybe in
Well,
25.
yeah,
Is
yeah,
that in
and you'll
this
see that when
budget?
you go through
Yes.
some of the lines. Like, for example, tax assessor, we went from having a full-time tax assessor to a part-time
Part-time,
tax
yeah.
assessor, so that salary line is reduced. But there were, some charges incurred for the outgoing tax assessor and things associated with that. So it's not as reduced as it will be for next year.
Got it. Yeah, there'll be more savings.
And
Yes.
without using that fund balance at 1.9, which I'm not a fan of using the fund balance either, but if you think about it, like, that would be another 10%, right? That would be another 10% increase in our taxes, which I don't think we can do.
Well,
Which I
the
don't
hope
want to
is
do.
that if we clear everything up this year, we won't have the same
We're gonna have this
situation
next
next
year.
year.
We'll be in a better situation next year. You know, we're playing catch up
Well,
now.
all right, this is the part I want to make sure I understand. You already have a 10% or 8 to 10% increase in the 2025 budget.
Mhm.
We still have a $1.9 million shortfall, if you will. 1.9 million expense over revenue, which we're using the fund balance, which is too high, which is good, right? We don't want to have a lot of money, and it's taxpayers' money, right? So we want to have the appropriate amount. But the point is that we have to bring that in balance for, we have to have a plan in place to bring that back into balance over the next couple of years, right? So that's the concern that I have, because that fund balance could disappear real quick
Oh, no, it
if we
definitely had.
if we don't bring in more revenue and or cut expense. So I just want to make sure that the order of magnitude that we're dealing with here, that we have that right, because I think we really have to consider how we're going to do that, going into 2026. So we got a plan for 2025, we'll tweak that. But how do we get that shortfall down considerably for the following year and the year after that? Got it down 600,000, but use 2.5 million for 23, 1.9 million for 24. We've got 3.3 million left. We can't have another 2 years like that.
But this is a result of the snowball effect. Like it's like this issue has been getting worse and worse. And like Jen said, now that we have a diligent CFO who's finding all the holes and plugging all the leaks, like unfortunately, this is the hand that we've been dealt, because it is not a great situation.
This is a
So
house
with
of
her being
cards.
brand new and finding everything she's finding, this is alarming that nothing's been done in the
But
prior
as a
years.
council, we need to identify where we can increase the revenues and where we can.
Well, I think that that's the point, is that you
That's-
need to identify sources of revenue.
Right.
Yes.
Right, correct.
Because remember, the municipality right now has two sources of revenue, taxes and grants.
Right.
Because the real estate, as diligent as Rachel is with selling real estate and is gonna continue to sell. and
Christine and I, Christine,
And
high
Christine.
five, high
We're
five, Christine,
trying,
don't leave me
baby.
hanging.
As
We sold
diligently
some.
as they're both gonna be with selling all of our real estate, we're eventually gonna get to a point where we don't sell real estate, so.
Yeah.
The problem coming in is you don't have those sales, we had, what was it,
prior years.
700,000?
Yeah, that
We had
was one of the things.
$700,000 in real estate sales, in the prior year.
2023, and those were the two, the remaining chunks that the borough had, those were them. They went to auction and they're gone.
Well, even though, sorry, Anthony, even though we're not selling the real estate, though, we are now getting taxes on those
Correct,
properties.
you're
Yes.
getting money, yeah.
So
Right.
it's-
Oh, no, of course, but
She's saying the
I'm
sales
just saying the
themselves.
sale
Yeah.
is where the
The
income
initial.
comes. So we had
Big chunk.
700,000 in income from real estate sales in 2023. Those, like Ray said to us last year, those days are gone because we have these smaller pieces that are left. Maybe people can put them together. And I have high hope that Christine and Rachel are gonna sell everything this year as a fire sale. But again, even if we were to do that, then there's no more real estate to sell. You're still back to square one with, you're very limited in your sources. You can redevelop property that you have where you bring in, something else to take the place of something. You can, encourage people to be able to build, on their properties. That's where, because we don't have the infrastructure to be able to build developments where, there's housing, we don't have huge housing developments. We don't have industrial.
Yeah.
Our industrial out on Sparta Stanhope, which is a fabulous area. They finally removed the 1-lane bridge. It's great. Well, now we're in the Highlands. So the Highlands property is all in the great area for us to develop stuff. So we're limited on our sources for revenue. So right now it's taxes and grants are getting harder and harder and harder because everybody's applying. Before, a lot of the smaller towns, they were able to get the grants because there weren't so many people applying. Now the bigger municipalities that
Yeah.
have high taxes and high people, they're applying for them now too. So it's a little crowded for all of us.
So I think one question that I had before I asked my other hundreds of questions in this is alarming for the public, right? They're gonna hear this work session and they're gonna say, oh my God, like what the hell? They're gonna be outraged. I think people's first concepts when they see what comes out or hear what comes out is they're gonna say, stop wasteful spending, cut the fat, do this, like. Not, and I'm not putting you on the spot here. Well, maybe I am, so I apologize. But like, do we really have that much fat to cut?
That's
You know?
yeah, that's
So-
what Shelby and I were talking about.
And that's what, because
before.
again, that's everybody's first instinct is where can we cut? What can we eliminate? What can we do to offset the impact to the residents?
Well, that's the first thing that I asked the auditor,
Right,
and he said to me that you really can't cut. That you really kind of had a bare bones budget for all these years.
Mhm.
And as time goes on, things like, especially health benefits have gone up.
Exponentially, yeah.
Inflation said about
itself,
16%,
I mean, when you
yeah.
wanna buy- if you want to build something, 5 years ago, you build it today, it costs more. And unfortunately, this is catching up us because we always had a zero increase.
Right.
That's,
And that
you know.
was one of the things that we talked about today greatly was the 0% tax increase. It's great to have a 0% tax increase, but when you have it for so many years consecutively, there's a lot of obvious numbers. Inflation in the country has gone up between 19 and 21% in the last 4 years, yet we had a 0% tax increase. In 3 years, the state health plan has gone up in between 19 and 22%, depending on the municipality. We had a 0% tax increase. Pension costs in the last 3 years have dramatically risen. He didn't have the number for me, but we still had a 0% tax increase. Most places at least cover those increases, most municipalities. We've never done that. We keep going into fund balance and taking it out of fund balance to pay our bills. And it is alarming. It's an alarming number, but had we have done a 2% increase, which would have been minuscule, a $20 increase, $25 increase per year, for 4 years, that would be 8%.
Mhm.
That would be exactly where we are, and we would just be flowing.
Yeah,
So
but I think a lot of what they did, I was only there the 1 year, but a lot of what they did is offset a lot of that with grants. They had massive grants coming in, so it
Mhm.
wasn't just like zero and they didn't do anything. There was income to
oh, no,
offset
I'm
lots
not
of that.
saying that, but
You're, it's a slam either way. Every administration's gonna slam the other one, but I think don't get carried away and give one side of the story because it'll blow up in your
oh, no,
face.
we'll have the auditor here to be able to ask
Yeah.
him questions, and he'll be able to give the same information that I just gave is the information I got from the auditor.
Mhm.
So that was his basic explanation that, most municipalities, they do a slight increase just because it helps them get from point A to point B, because everything goes up, fuel goes up, health insurance goes up, salaries go up, all the different things go up. And it's not a sleight of hand by no means and by no reason. It's just a question of, this is just kind of sort of where we are now, trying to fix
I
that.
think something that also needs to be said, though, is that grants are great if you actually collect the funding.
They're not,
Yeah,
they're
well,
not
that,
giving
that.
it.
Well,
they
no,
were
no,
here
no,
for.
this has been, where we've gotten
No, they
grants and
were.
we have not
They
collected
were,
money.
because, hold on,
Not the
guys, I
millions.
just wanna make sure everybody hears what,
I heard her.
can
I
we,
was just
Yeah.
saying that.
can
to him.
we, can we talk about what's,
Yeah,
the
what
issue with
happened
the
with all of
grants?
that, because we were handed a big number at one meeting that said that a lot of them weren't collected, and we have never heard anything since. Did we get all that grant money?
No.
No.
Okay.
A lot of it was lost.
And as a result, what will happen, Shelby, to our grant applications going forward?
Well, we're already seeing that we're not being awarded some grants because we did not
Follow through.
follow through on the full administration of the grants.
and that's been from that's not recent, that's been grants going back 2, 3, 4,
Several years.
several
And what
years.
was roughly the total of those grants?
That was
1.8
1.8 in our audit from last year, $1.8 million.
We do know that 700 and change is for the carbon filtration systems. We just haven't been billed for it yet. So we do know that that's for that.
So you take that, you
It's $1
take
million.
the, so you take the properties, prime properties that were sold over the years, you take into the zero increases for over the years.
Mhm.
And this is exactly
That's
where
where
we
we're
are.
Mhm, mhm.
So like, you can sugarcoat it all you want.
No, yeah, I'm not sugarcoating,
So-
but I want to be fair. Fair is fair. If they sold $700,000 and they thought that would cover their little tiny increase, that they could tell the town who, we were going through a lot of, high gas rates and all this, people were complaining. I mean, you have to take both sides. Yeah, every single administration is gonna find something, and then the next administration is gonna find something
So
from
I've
here.
been a taxpayer here for a very long time.
Mhm,
I was amazed for past 6 years our taxes didn't go up at all. And I'm a taxpayer,
mhm.
right?
Mhm.
I was marveled at how you actually operate like that because everything around you goes up.
Mhm.
The gases goes up, the electric goes up, insurance, employee, everything goes up.
Mhm.
So that's, but this is what we're stuck with now.
Yeah, no, we have to deal with what we have
So-
now.
Getting back to the grants, though, the grants are oftentimes tied to a project.
Yes,
always,
no,
yes.
Always, yeah.
So the grants aren't really feeding our operational
Well,
budget.
The
And also, if
problem
you-
is grants operate on a reimbursement, so
Right, you
we
have to
were
spend it.
completing projects and then never submitting the reimbursements.
Which means
So
we
we
paid
get
for
the money
those
back that we
projects.
were
And that was
supposed
to the
have
tune of 1.8 million?
Yes.
That was
Just
an
for,
audit.
just for the
Last year.
2023 audit alone.
That's unbelievable.
I mean, it was clear how.
You're gonna
fiscally
hear me say this a lot
irresponsible the
tonight.
Previous administration was,
Mhm.
I have no problem saying.
Well, I
it.
wouldn't say
mean,
that it was the administration per se, it's just sometimes you're not aware of it till it gets brought to you.
I'm thankful,
Yeah,
I'm,
that's your
this
job
is,
then.
Council had no idea.
no,
I'm
but I'm
not
gonna say
saying
it a
that-
hundred
I'm not
times,
saying-
I'm
I'm
thankful that we
speaking
have
directly
a
about the
diligent
manager.
CFO, I'm gonna say it 100
We
times
didn't have
tonight,
a
a diligent
CFO when
CFO.
some of this stuff
But that's a
happened.
problem,
No,
Yeah,
no,
we had a
Christine,
CFO.
No,
diligent,
no, we
had
a diligent CFO is.
Well, most of this started getting uncovered once we had the temporary CFO last year, and then when Judy got here, it's been the same thing. The two of them have been working in tandem on this. The temporary CFO, Joe Sedekase, and Judy have been working diligently with this with Ray. Ray has been involved in this since the summer.
I remember that
Mhm.
audit
Yeah.
and sitting in the audience and I was expecting fireworks when I heard 1.8 million was left on the table. And nobody said boo about it. I don't think anybody really.
I don't think they
maybe
understood.
understands
I think we were a
No.
little in
What
shock.
that, what that
with
was or how
Yeah.
bad that was, but
Mhm.
that was probably one of the, and I've sat in a few audits just across the school board and other things, but that was probably one of the most alarming things I've ever heard. And it kind of just was like, oh, okay, we didn't collect 1.8 million. And that's our
the-
number, right?
the
1.9.
The sad, you're right.
Right. There we are,
The sad
balanced
part
budget.
about
Yeah.
that, in reality, Anthony, is that, you bring
Joe.
those grants in, no.
Oh, Anthony, oh, my bad.
No, no, I know who Joe is.
There's a big
Joseph
difference
Anthony,
between
All
Joe and
Italians,
I.
what
The Italians, like,
No,
sorry,
that's
sorry.
okay. But, what happens is if you collect a $10,000 grant and you have to expend the $10,000 for pay for the product. So you complete the grant, you get the product in, you pay the $10,000 for it. If you don't get reimbursed for it, you spent it out of the budget.
That part I get, but you know, of the.
And it doesn't
and
come
that we're
back, is
not-
what my
We're not
point is.
anticipating any of that happening in
No.
2025, so
No.
that's not
Correct.
going to make up part of the 1.9 that we need, that's my point. 'Cause we
Yes.
talk about less in terms of grants, they're harder to get, but they're tied to projects that we would do, so it's not
Yes.
gonna affect the operating budget in any way. We need to find other ways to balance
course.
the operating
Mhm.
budget.
Of course.
You know, because getting grants, we're just gonna spend more money because we have to in order to get the grant,
Right.
Yes.
right? So.
Yeah, but I think for tonight, though, I think we all across the table agree with you. We have to find other sources of revenue.
Right.
So I think we have to just, but we have to keep moving through this,
Yeah,
right? So,
I would say, it's probably a good time to go to sheet 11 and then we just start going page by page and going down. I think that's the way to go, right? Judy?
so to say current fund anticipated revenues continue at the top.
Yeah,
It's actually two good things, though. You have to do what they call a tax levy cap and a budget appropriation cap, and even given all of this, we've met them all. So that's,
Is that a good thing?
that's a good thing.
I didn't hear. what
I'm
you
happy
There's
it
a,
is.
there's a tax levy cap and a budget appropriation cap, and even given all of this, we've met them,
Oh, okay.
you know? And that's only because of the fact that they have what they call a tax levy cap bank and a budget appropriation bank. And we were able to kind of like bank them. And you bank them in the past and you use them for the current and the future. So even though we're raising things, we were able to use that to be able to get to the point where the state would pass this budget. Because within those caps. And if you want, I could actually point that out to you on some of the sheets here. If you go to page, not to interrupt Shelby, I just
no,
want to tell you.
no, go for it.
See where if you go to page 3B, right? See what says over or under appropriation cap at the end? That has to be a decent number, otherwise you will not be able to. pass it.
He is employed.
Yes,
That can't be negative, what you're
right,
saying.
yes.
Got it.
3B. OB.
B is in boy.
3B and boy.
And if you go to 3C, the sheet
Oh,
3
here.
levy cap, you have the same thing there.
Okay.
3
Levy
cap.
cap. Yeah, that's 3B. That's right, 3B.
Three levy caps.
There it is, got it, sorry, okay. Mhm.
Right, so we're gonna start at page sheet 11.
Sheet 11.
Okay. I have a question about section F.
Okay, section F.
So it went from $508,000 to 18,000.
Section F is the grants, was, see with that 508?
Yep.
What happens is when you're doing your budget, you don't know all the grants that you have. So throughout the year, you have to do what you call a chapter 159, which adds to the grant. The other thing was that with the grant is a revenue side and a budget side.
Right.
They have to equal. So that will probably go up if more grants are available. As a matter of fact, I started working on some grants as soon as I started, because I saw some things weren't done to try to not to lose some of them. And also we met with the new grant
Yeah.
writers
Yep.
and they seem to be pretty good on board and they know a lot of sources. So they're looking out for some things for us, probably even as we speak.
Yeah,
That's great.
yeah, and there were some I tried to recoup at the end of the year in December, just like, last ditch effort to recoup some of the funds, but wasn't able to.
Some of them are just too old.
Yeah, that's what they timed out. And even submitting expenses that should have qualified at that point, they were too expired to be able to be reimbursed.
And then the G is what is that G? What is items are those?
G is,
Other special items.
that's other special revenue. So let's see what they have there. I don't know if you noticed also state aid went down a little bit.
Yeah.
That happened to all the towns really. Okay, G is, if you go to page 10. That's our like cell tower rental, the
Oh,
cable
okay.
TV.
That's the total. 293 is the total.
Yes.
Okay.
Solar. Oh, solar, yeah, we got that money back.
Do you know how
And
many
the
more years are
cable.
left in the pilot programs?
Oh man, we were just talking about that this morning.
Yeah, they're,
Do you remember the pilots, what,
How many more years?
I think that Patty told me a few of them are gonna become full this year, So that'll actually help the tax rateable base. I think she said there's 9 townhomes, I believe, and maybe 4 or 5 are gonna become fully taxed. Some of them only just taxed by land. I think they have a few years to go on that.
Should be closer.
How many
yeah.
pilots do we have?
I think she said there's 9 townhomes in one area.
I think it's the,
I forget what it's
no,
called.
no, yeah, I think it's the River Styx.
Yeah.
Isn't a pilot program only 5 years?
No,
There was one that
It
was.
depends upon the
It depends on
agreement.
your.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we-
there's pilots in place that can go up to 30 years. I mean,
Right.
it ranges. I see it all the time.
I thought that was a
Yeah,
pilot
right.
program
The
was
cell
only
tower
5 years.
contract is offhand or
I'm sorry, the what?
the cell tower, do you know what that?
Anything in
contract-
particular you're looking for?
Length,
We are not up, I believe, until 2027,
And why'd that number go down? What we collected?
oh, it's 28 actually.
24 to.
2028.
and who's that through? Sorry, Anthony.
I don't remember who it is off the top of my head.
Yeah, to Anthony's point, why does it go, is it that the way the contract's built out, does it generate less over time, or do we not know that?
It could be that they're paying payments in and there could be something that's anticipated that's missing out of there, that it's not the same.
Have we ever been approached about selling that?
Then we won't be able to rent it out.
What do you mean?
Well, if you sell it, then you have a
This
one.
is-
Sell the
yeah.
contract?
Yeah.
Yeah, then you have a one-time
fees
fee.
and
This way we get-
revenue and then.
Those
goes
one-time
away.
fees are pretty substantial though, because I went.
Oh,
through
no,
one of
I know
those
they-
on a
they
building
are.
of mine.
But $125,000 a year is not, you'd lose you'd lose like a consistent source of revenue.
I understand that, but the monetary component that they offer you for the contract is larger than what they typically get because of the technology on a monthly basis, so they overpay for that technology is what I'm saying. There's companies that do that. I don't know if we've ever explored that.
I know that when the school sold their cell tower, I don't think that they made nearly as much as they should have.
Well, that's because they were run extremely poorly as well. so-
I do know that the contract, like Shelby said, is not up for renewal or anything till 2028.
Yeah.
But something to look into.
And the amounts have changed over time, but it looks like it's gonna stay the same from now. Actually, it goes until, oh, well, they wanna renew it at the same rate, and we said it's not up for renewal. We're not talking about it now, because we're gonna see if we can get more, but.
Yeah, I was gonna
So they're
say,
trying to renew it now.
Yeah, they're trying to renew it now at the same rate, and we're like, no.
So it's gonna stay 125.
Yeah, it should. The payments are all the same, so it should stay about the same.
And I know there's a resident that reaches out to us all the time to offer services because he owns a cell tower too.
Mhm.
Yep.
Why do, so
All right, we're
my
going back
next
now.
question,
Sorry.
so why do some of the departments, for like other expenses, some of them have like a differential of like 20,000
What
from,
page are you on?
well, several, so like if you look at sheet 12, sheet 14, like 14 is land use, like their other expenses is jumping up 20,000, like some of them only go up several thousand, but you have emergency management system that's going up pretty substantially, fire prevention. Like why are those,
What page are you on?
so go, I guess we'll start with
Start with-
14.
Oh, I was gonna say start with 12.
Okay, let's start with 12.
Yeah, we can start with 12. So like, yeah, financial administration, so other expenses. So 2024 is 35, and then for 2025, it's 55.9. Like, is there a formula
Well, the
for,
reason why I did that, if you look over total for 2024 as modified by all transfers, 65,000, right? And they spent 64,000.
Oh,
So
so
I'm
that's in
actually giving them
response.
less.
got it?
So that's in
Oh.
response for what was budgeted.
Yes.
And then I have questions on this page too. So
Sure.
the mayor and council
Mhm.
should be 15,250, because that doesn't change.
Okay, well, the only thing I had talked to Courtney, and she said that there's one council member
Oh,
that
that's
is
right.
not getting
I
a
forgot.
salary.
I forgot. You're right.
Okay,
You're right.
alrighty.
My bad. My bad.
Okay.
I forgot about that.
Okay,
And then the borough clerk. That went up a significant amount, the salary. Yes, that's more than 2%. Or no?
There's probably some wiggle room there because we will be hiring a clerk.
right, we were, I mean, we kind of like, we were thinking about what the new clerk might possibly ask for.
Mhm.
We weren't sure about that. I think
But
that there
this
was a
isn't-
salary range.
That's,
I mean, we
Hold
could
on.
lower it, just, you know, we don't know what the
Yeah, we don't know what.
the new
we-
person's going to be.
I wanted to
asking.
do budget before we even approach that conversation.
Conversation, right?
Is
I
it
mean, we
same
could
with
always
the
put-
salary wages financial, for the financial administration? There is that, I mean, there was an increase on that from last year, but that's that because we went from a part-time to a full-time CFO?
Yes.
Okay.
That's because we have Judy now.
Yeah, I realized that as I was saying it.
I just realized that as you were
Yeah,
saying it
thank
too,
you.
because I was
That's
like, why did that
that's
go
why
up so
it's
much?
The O and E too, because we're not gonna have all the other extras either. That's, you know.
Got it.
so 14, land use, other expenses.
Landis has told me that they have a new program.
Yeah, that's gonna be the.
Oh,
And that's gonna be right.
What is that? That's called.
The pilot.
Now, the group health on 14 has quite a substantial increase.
Which one?
Group health, employee group health,
Um,
200 grand.
yes,
That's what we're anticipating.
16%.
it has really, really gone up, and I actually had Courtney do a whole analysis on that.
Oh, look, $240,000. That was the difference. That's insane.
Yeah, we struggle with that too.
Mhm.
So we're gonna
Sure.
increase down to 5% this year. They started out at 12.
And that went 5.
Yeah,
I know the school got hit with a large one too.
it's all a bit on that, you know, a lot of it, well, privately, a lot of it is tied to, what do they call it? Their experience that they have,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
how much they pay out versus how much they take in.
And then on page 15, the other expenses against the emergency management system.
That's dispatch or is that OEM?
That's OEM. I asked everybody for their budget.
Oh,
Wade had
this is
given me
with the
that.
requests.
Okay, that's a request. I mean, that's, I said I would put in requests.
Got it. That's on the last
Um,
page. And then for the Fire Prevention Bureau, that's for what we've paid this year, 2025?
Yes,
Okay, and that should be it then?
that should be
Yeah,
it.
that will be going
should be
away.
it.
as
Well, but I
opposed
mean,
to-
that would be, the 15 is what it is and that's it.
Yes, I got that year-to-date salary from Courtney.
Awesome.
Yeah, so for that, for fire prevention, so 2024, we know what that base salary was, so this 48.7, that's base salary plus call out, that's
Yes.
like all in, that's.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
So now it'll go to, we're gonna farm it out to
It'll be
shared
zero.
services.
And then
yeah.
it will be 0. So 15 is gonna be the max that it is all year.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
That's the element thing. And so this other expense,
not,
so this
not
other expense is
anymore.
under public works functions, that's their request as well.
Yes.
Got it.
Does it make sense to go to the capital expenditure request list first? Cause like all these numbers are inflated with their capital requests, right? You
No, the
said?
capital request, it's a totally separate budget. The
Oh,
only
I'm
part of
sorry, I
this
thought I
budget-
heard you say before.
Yeah,
The
with the
request-
fire.
It
Oh,
might
yeah.
be helpful to have them have what the requests for OE were.
What, as far as the capital or?
No, the OE, the differences.
Let's see if I have that.
Jen, did you hear that before too, or did I not hear it right?
I thought I understood, when we were doing emergency management, it went from 25 to 45 for other expenses. I thought that included his request.
Well, there are requests that would fall under OE, and then there are requests that would fall under capital.
Capital, right.
And then there
Oh,
are
I
some
see,
Oh,
I
so you're gonna
see.
tell us
Okay.
what's gonna fall
yeah,
under
yeah,
OE.
yeah.
I
And
got
there's
it.
That-
some
Yes,
things-
other
that is
expenses,
OE.
other expenses is separate from capital, got
Yes,
it, okay.
capital separate,
Yeah, and
right?
there's some things that they put on their capital list, but it turns out it's really an OE, and that was one of the things
I
with
see.
police, where
Okay.
they had something on their capital, but it's really more of an OE expense.
Which I
So-
wanted to ask you what you wanted to do about that, because sometimes if something's like 10 or 15,000, you maybe wouldn't charge it to capital, because why would you go out and borrow that?
Yeah, paid over
No.
20 years.
You know, and if you want
Right.
to just, you could just fund it all in capital, fund it all in current, either way. But it doesn't pay to go out and borrow and pay 8 or 9% over all those years, like you're saying, for $15,000.
Yeah, for 15 grand.
Mhm, yeah, okay.
Judy, in the sheet 15A,
Mhm.
the other expenses for vehicle maintenance,
Yes,
so we went from 188 for 2024 to actual spending 159 to this year, we're thinking 60,000. Do we sell any vehicles or?
well, the only thing is I had gotten that from DPW. That's the number that he gave me.
Are you
So,
sure this is correct number?
I
Because
mean, I
to
can
me, it
ask
looks
him,
like
but
a-
I did say to him, are you sure? And he said, that's the number that he had.
Looks like it should be 169.
Because I think-
Yeah.
So, I mean, he might have made a mistake. Maybe
I-
I made.
I
Cause if
think-
you look the
I
past
remember
couple
asking that.
meetings, the bills list alone, like there's
I
so many
can ask
repairs
them.
going
Yeah.
through.
Yeah.
I think that's 100% a
Probably a
mistake.
typo.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll ask him then, because I did ask
I'm
him why
asking
it was
just-
so
no,
low.
I'm just kidding. I'm teasing, I'm teasing.
Give him like another 1,000.
Yeah.
Mm.
He'll
And-
figure it out too soon.
Right.
Yeah.
And then on 15B, what is the Health and Human Services, this health department? Are those grants?
This is the nutrition, I believe.
The OE
Community
is-
Resource Center.
The OE,
It's the salary for the Community Resource Center.
Oh, okay.
that's it.
Yeah.
I thought that was the nutrition.
No,
The
no,
other
that's,
is
Okay,
that's the Community Resource Center.
okay.
So this is the, got it. community
Wellness,
center.
the wellness.
The wellness,
center.
oh,
Wellness,
wellness,
okay.
yeah. And I think the OE is the Nutrition Center.
Is it, oh, that's why I thought you were referring to that. I'm sorry, the 27 is nutrition.
But the nutrition center isn't an appropriation, it's a revenue, isn't it? Cause it's 27.7 or 27, yeah.
They,
Mhm.
the salaries, I think, come out of that.
But wouldn't that be under salary and wages?
Yeah, but I think the way it was in the budget here, I think they have,
That wouldn't be under senior citizens program?
I think it's separate from senior citizens.
I was trying to figure out.
Yeah, no, now I'm getting confused.
115C. What is this? They're volunteer.
27.7 is nutrition as a revenue.
27.
7
Is
on page 7
Yeah, is a
right,
revenue.
is a revenue.
It's a revenue.
And I think I thought that was the expenditure part. If that's the case, that should be a 7.
We don't
See what
ha-
they
I
had
didn't
in
think-
24, let's see what they had in 24.
Well, it says that they paid 25,157.
thought that was it, because I even talked to the auditor about that. But I can question that. if you
Unless
want. I
it's,
can ask
the
them.
27 is OE from something else.
I can ask them. I mean, I read the budget numbers, so I really don't know, I'll ask what that is then.
Okay.
Because I looked at last year's and that's kind of how I allocated it based upon last year's.
And that's just the salary and wages is for the community
Yeah,
center.
yeah, exactly.
And for animal controls, that they don't, is that going from a full-time to a part-time position?
Yeah, that was a big drop.
That was one
Yeah.
of my questions, because that was also on the police wish
But we
list.
kind of
Well, we
picked
had,
up
we had a
two
lot more,
part-timers.
we had a lot more part-timers at one point with one full-timer. So now we still only have one full-timer and only a couple.
Two
I thought we
I'm
part-timers.
sorry, two full-timers, because we did hire.
Higher, yeah, and we
yes.
cut out three part-timers or went away or something,
Mhm.
yeah.
Now, do
Yeah,
we,
but that they-
Still doesn't matter.
How are we paying? How are we
But
paying
we
for
also
two
gave up
full-timers?
certain towns.
Because I think that
we gave
can't
up-
be right.
because I think, does
We-
Gianna's salary, I'm not allowed to say her, did the HACO or the HLOC, does that salary come from the police budget?
No,
No, except that, but we remember we were giving up certain towns she couldn't handle the amount of
We
towns.
still have a full-time and a part-time and this wouldn't cover it, so I don't,
Okay, well, I got this from payroll, so I could check this also.
yeah, see where she's being
Yeah,
charged to.
'cause
then if
Jen,
she's
So we have a
Ace-
full-time, we have a full-time and a part-time?
Two
right now?
full-times.
Oh, two full-time right now, currently?
But should,
I know
unless
that's-
somebody
we
resigns.
borrowed from it last
I'll give
year.
you that, because I don't think that's supposed
I
to
think it
happen.
might be coming out of the animal trust for salary, which is not supposed to.
But
Okay, I
remember,
will check it.
she said she can't handle Wharton and.
Right, we dropped some towns, but the ACO is not part of the PBA contracts, which that's not part of police salaries. She's white collar.
Right, so that may potentially go up then.
$5,000 Is that number correct for senior citizens and handicap transportation? How many people is that?
Well, this is also from payroll also, so all these numbers are from payroll.
It's a lot
So you
of
think
money
that's
for
one
somebody to be
person, two
driving
people?
senior
Yeah,
around.
with that,
You think
It's
that's
just
one
that
or,
guy that drives the bus.
Just the one
isn't it?
guy.
has he been here a long
Unless his whole
time?
salary is coming out of here, because he does work for DPW. They might be just using the salary out of here instead of breaking it up.
Instead of DP, well, it should really be in DPW then, with a partial business.
Okay,
Right.
so we can't say.
So
the
I think we
person's
have to
name,
look,
look
we
at
have
that?
to look at all the
Okay.
payroll accounts and make sure that people are being charged correctly.
but-
to
Well, I
the
know some of them
details.
aren't because, and actually, the
Well, I
ones
know we
that,
had to do a lot of changes too.
well, the ones that weren't, I actually revamped all of that for this, because some people were not being charged correctly in the right labor cost material.
Yeah, so I'm not even gonna look at the pages right now. I have one flow question. So payroll is not you. You weren't right. So somebody else's payroll and then they pull the figures and then it comes to you, right? I just wanna make sure, so I know.
Right, but I
who
review,
goes
I look
where.
at all the payroll and whatever,
right, right.
whatever, I can't say the person's name, I don't think,
No.
okay. Whatever the person does, like just for instance, came to me today and
Mm-hmm.
I look at everything that was done, all the time she's submitted, vacation, all the time, outside of title, all that stuff.
Mhm,
And I compare it to the payroll run,
okay,
and that's how we do all that, and then we make the transfers and we have a second person also checking it.
okay.
But I think it also needs to be said too, that payroll is also, it's a remnant of what we came into. And we've already had to do a lot of cleanup and change of moving people to different things and changing where people's salaries were being charged to. And we've had staff that moved around or changed as well, that were still being charged to old departments that
Right.
they weren't in anymore. So I thought we cleaned everything up, but it's clear that there's still some things that need. to
Well,
be
I know on
cleaned up.
this here, like for instance, I believe tax assessing had changed, right? With tax
Yes,
collectors,
yes.
so I actually, those are all incorporated into this.
But I think there's
The ones
clearly
that I
some
knew
people we
about.
missed that still need to
Okay,
be fixed.
All right, we could talk to payroll about it.
Yeah,
And then what's this? What's CDBG?
that's
That's a grant.
the housing.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were on the grant page. This
Yeah,
is,
affordable housing.
where are you
Yeah.
looking at? I'm sorry.
The next page. 18C.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
Say, okay. Yes, that is the housing office.
Is that like a stipend?
It's a
believe
partial
it is, right?
salary
Partial stipend, right?
allocation to, no, to that,
Person.
yeah,
I thought you were our housing.
yeah.
Does that need to go away?
It
Or does that need
probably
to go to
also
you?
needs To be adjusted.
This needs to be adjusted also.
It might,
Probably,
because Shelby's the housing, you're right,
I am.
you're the
housing
HUD
yeah.
liaison and the housing liaison.
And actually, one other clarification question. So, because I know zoning and construction sharing an office. So the people that are in there, it's 3 zoning, 2 construction. Is that how the breakout is?
There's 3 of them.
The 2 department heads,
3 and 2.
Yeah.
Yes.
because land use falls under zoning.
Yeah, it should, right?
Okay,
Yes.
so it's, okay, I just want to know if the split, so it's
Yes.
3 and 2, okay.
So uniform, so this is 2. This is 2 people
This is
on
two-
16, page 16 is
This
2
is
people
two
or
and the,
3?
and the part-timers,
The inspectors, yes.
the inspectors
Yes.
are also in that too.
Yes.
Mhm.
So this is 2. This is both, both.
It's the construction official and an administrative assistant and then
Correct.
the inspectors.
It's the inspectors.
Okay.
Doesn't it do the inspection?
No, we have specialized inspectors for certain
Oh,
things.
electrical,
Correct.
got it, right,
Yeah.
right, okay, that's right, I always forget that. Page 17, yeah.
Yeah, utilities for electric,
Yeah, we know that's gonna change.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
gonna,
yeah, it doesn't seem right.
At least
Be
20%.
nice if it went down, but
yeah,
Yeah.
that one's gonna have to go up.
No, but you
So-
see, paid or charged? Look
Yeah,
at the
but-
paid or charged, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
but it's gonna
but
go
we,
up 20%.
Set. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, so the only thing is I try to put a little wiggle room with the rest. Like CIA had paid or
Yeah.
charged 56 in fuel oil,
bullshit.
but I put 63.
This one.
Okay, see paid or charged 50,000 for gasoline. So if you want, I could take the 115 and move that up.
Does it matter, or is it all in one?
fuel
doesn't-
oil and the gasoline's
Account.
the one thing that might go
Yeah.
I
down.
was just gonna say.
Yeah, so
it
you, so
is
you want to
well.
change that? You want to, you want to do it that way? Just put a little more
I missed it,
electricity and lower the gasoline?
I would,
Okay. Any given figure?
But is fuel oil diesel and gasoline is just gas maybe? They're 2 different,
It is
Fuel
true.
oil is
Yeah.
like,
Fuel oil is
yes.
still
Yeah.
high.
Yeah.
Well, what I like to do is I kind of like to watch it when I get towards the end of the year. If I need money, I do transfers. But we can kind of like reallocate a little bit,
Yeah,
just
that's
increase
gonna
and then
go down.
decrease back and forth. You want to do that?
yeah.
Okay, so we'll increase electricity, we'll decrease that, alrighty.
Why do they think street lighting is go down? There are a lot more poles being hit?
It's going up by
So, yeah.
$2,000.
yeah.
Well, we
so
spent
it was-
40,
here's what
Yeah, we
spent.
spent, yeah. that-
Here's what, so she made the 2025 amount off of what was actually spent for.
Okay, oh, all
24.
right.
I mean, I
okay.
could increase, that's why I made the other one so big, so I would have a little room to move
Right,
around. in
wiggle
case-
room, yeah.
I figured I'd ask your opinion.
Yeah,
what you
because it
think
is a
about that.
20% increase.
So I do have a question for sorry, we're still on 17.
Mhm.
Celebration of events, does it make sense to have the line item? And I only ask that because we have, so every town event now is being run by our superintendent of recreation. So do we need a line item here for this, or should this really just fall into recreation?
This is a recreation line.
But like 3 years ago, the recreation or the parade budgets and the celebration budget was like $2,000, 2,500 for decorating or plantings and stuff. It was never in this category. I'd like to know where it's being spent. I mean, it's an exorbitant amount.
So should it move then to recreation on sheet 15C? Because right now, only because it's listed as unclassified, that's why.
Does it need to, Judy, does it need to be its own, or could it just be pulled under recreation?
Page 17.
I've usually seen it on its own, because to me, recreation is, like, see, this is other expenses. That's for small items. See how small the amount is, $6,000?
Mm-hmm.
And see what was paid and charged. Paid or charged, I mean, total modified, if you look at 24, was 5,000, okay? They only spent 955. You go across the whole line there,
Way too
you
much
see?
money.
Well, so that's because they have the trust
Way too
Right,
much money.
right.
that they were using.
And they've been using the trust, so that's gonna be going down too. That's why I put a little more funding in that.
Oh my God.
But I would think that for the celebration of events themselves, I would think it should be a separate category. It's easier to watch it and monitor it, I think.
But
but-
could it, be moved to be a sub-account under recreation
I
instead
mean,
of
it
its
could
own?
be, it could
Maybe
be.
that's
just
the answer.
It
Add
could
another
be.
line item in there.
Maybe that's the
Budget
answer.
to go.
So only, so
What are we accomplishing by doing that, though? I mean, at the end of the day, it's still a separate account. We see the numbers separately. I do
'Cause
think
it's where the-
recreation and celebration events are two different things.
right, that's why I'm asking, does it make sense, like, does dissolving that line item and just putting those funds into recreation, like, why do we need a separate celebration of events when everything runs through recreation anyway? Like, what's the purpose of having its own line
I don't think That
item?
runs with the recreation is the person that we have managing it, but I
His
mean, I
salary,
think.
right.
that
We never had
identifying-
that before.
Identifying a celebration of events, what we're spending on parades and things like that is different from, basketball games and.
Right,
you know,
because that's in recreation trust. and-
Kids
right.
recreation events, yeah, I would keep that separate.
So where does the recreation spending come out of?
Well,
So, sorry, I'm just gonna, I don't mean to try to be confusing, but you have superintendent of recreation and then you have the recreation commission.
right.
So how does, like,
What
make that make
happens is
sense?
the Superintendent, he actually is an employee,
That's
and he
what
falls
I
under the
thought.
current budget, the salary
Right.
of the recreation. The way the trust works here is that you take in, I guess, revenues, people have fees, basketball, soccer, whatever have you, okay? And then, they actually offset the expenditures for those funds.
So it's basically
Basketball, whatever,
self-funded.
exactly
Mhm.
so. And in some towns, what they do is they will raise some money in the current budget for recreation and push that over to the trust. But I've been seeing that less and less. It's really kind of, like, it's almost kind of like, it's like self-liquidated in a sense, with all the revenues that are coming in, and then you're just paying the expenditures out of the revenues. And towns haven't been funding those because, the fees are pretty decent. They're coming, you have a lot of kids participating. So usually it runs okay. It's usually okay, the recreation trust. I mean,
And-
even here, I've seen it's pretty good.
And then where do things like the Memorial Day Parade and
That would be in celebration of events, because that's being raised.
so
in the
that's
current
that's
budget.
separate from,
Separate, yes.
but but it falls under recreation.
Well, it would fall under recreation in a sense that it could be a recreation item, but it's not where you're taking in fees from anyone.
Right, exactly.
To have those
I
parades or
understand.
whatever
Okay.
services, no.
Gotcha.
And the POs actually come through the recreation superintendent.
That's what I was
For
gonna
that
say.
line
So
item.
For that line item.
Okay.
Only Max is gonna have, or the recreation super is gonna have access to pull funds and make requisitions from that account.
Got it. Thank you.
Separate topic, this not for now, but for afterwards, I guess, can we get a year over year of what's been charged out of this account, this line item?
It's not
Are
on
you on
there.
celebration of events still?
Yeah, I broke my pen, I'm so
Want to go
upset,
back a
sorry.
couple of years, you mean, or?
Yeah.
So last
Because
year it says-
Christine was saying,
It says last year there was $22,000 that
Right.
was spent, 22,365,
Right,
all the way on the right-hand side.
right. And I gave a little less.
And then, I mean, we're talking a lot of money, a lot of money. I'm telling you, it was not that, I'd like to see 23 and
Right, so you want
20.
to do an analysis
Well,
of this?
If you could find those funds, because I'm sure the money was being spent, like,
Yeah.
I don't.
I mean,
Let's
all
call
right,
it the
here's
way
a
it
perfect
is.
example. I
All
know
right.
Easter was rained out last year and there was a lot of candy bought. And I heard it was all thrown away and we had to buy new candy this year. If we had put it in a refrigerator or a freezer somewhere, we would not have had to throw all that money away. I mean, not to be nitpicky over $1,000, but $1,000 is $1,000. And how many eggs and candy and stuff do we really need that is gonna help? Is it really solidifying our town in any way when we could fix something that needs to be repaired? I mean, we went through the multi-parade thing last week and, we have so many things going on. And I think it's great that the kids are getting all the bouncy stuff and all that, but maybe we need to get a little more creative and get some bay hails and stuff and set up, little different runaround tracks or something rather than spend all this money. I just find it to be a really extreme, but maybe I'm the only one that thinks that. I just think it's an extreme expense that we don't need $22,000.
I think if you're gonna put $19,000 aside for it,
Yeah,
right, then you should have more. You should have more. There
I
should be
do.
more.
I don't think you should put $19,000 aside for it. That's my point.
Well, I respectfully disagree if we're investing in events for kids in the community, and also are we doing like beautification as well? Is that in celebration of events too? Is that like
No.
include
That's
That's
environmental.
environmental.
environmental?
That's environmental.
I don't think that's a lot of money to spend on the community.
But, I
agree,
think
Jeff.
it would be good to take a look at what are the events that we're having that's
Mhm.
justifying that money. You know what I mean? If we're using it for one event or two events, that's one thing. If there's, 4 or 5 events going on during the year, we're using it for that. That's another thing. So I think that, maybe we need to take a closer look at the events that we are having throughout the year and then make a decision once.
I still go back to the 1.8 million.
I think you, I think you also have somebody, who's now, he's got $19,000 to plan these events. He's got a lot of really good ideas that he has shared with the rec commission. So I think that you're gonna see more stuff. So that money is gonna be invested and used wisely, I think, anyway, in my opinion, in dealing with that person.
And then my last, hold on, sorry, I lost my page now.
17?
I'm going back, I'm flipping.
You're going
I'm trying
back.
to
You're flipping,
find-
don't flip.
I know,
don't
I'm
flip.
sorry. My last question around recreation, it says Board of Recreation Commissioners. Is there any way just to change that? Only because it's very misleading, because the Recreation Commission is volunteers, they don't get paid. Does that make sense? Like, when you read Board of Recreation Commissioners, I think the commissioners are getting paid, but they're not.
Well, there's
So
nothing
what
in
do you
their
want
line.
to, but it is a commission, it's not a committee, right?
No.
No,
Well,
but
recreation
it's the
is
recreation department.
department,
Now it is.
because we have the
So
Recreation
it's-
Department and we have the Recreation Commission, and I think the two often get mixed up when people talk about them.
I mean, maybe you could even eliminate it. I mean, it's recreation, it's funded in the current budget. I just think it was always there, but I don't see the significance or the insignificance. I mean,
Well, to the public, I'm
oh, you
saying,
think the public
yes, the
thinks that
public, when
they're
they see Board of
Then I
Recreation
would, then I would just
Commissioners.
eliminate it. and
Well, can we
have
just change
recreation.
it? So it just says like it says recreation, and then underneath that, Board of Recreation Commissioners, can we just say Recreation Department or?
Yeah, you could just do that. if you
Okay.
want.
Oh, I see, because
Just
that
erase
line has
that-
nothing.
has
Yes, I
nothing,
see.
yeah.
Perfect. Then just
Just
delete
take
it.
it out.
I just don't want people, anybody from
Thinking
the
that
public,
they- yeah.
when it's just posted, thinking that
that's
the
fine,
commission gets
yeah.
paid. Okay.
Anybody else on page 18? The other thing was page 17.
18 was the over expenditure.
That's the over expenditure, and that's explained here,
Yeah,
the over expenditure of salaries.
right.
Okay,
Yeah, that's in this one.
so over expenditure of salaries, okay. All right. I thought that was that, because I was like, 153, why does that sound familiar?
And so we shouldn't, for over expenditures, like we shouldn't see anything going forward, right? Like everything has been,
Fixed.
Captured.
Yep.
The public employees retirement system, that number's down by.
What page are you
roughly-
on?
19.
Down by 50,000.
Yeah,
Is
that
it-
was a reduction and that's the exact amount.
For,
Matter of fact, we've already paid it, so I know it's the exact amount.
all right.
It's due April 1.
Probably because you had some retirements that you're not
Yes,
having to
that's what I'm thinking,
contribute, you had people
retirements, yes.
leave that you're not contributing to those employees anymore.
And the 535 social security, that's based upon wages, we times the wages by 7.65 for social security and Medicare, that number. The police and fire retirement, that's an exact bill, also that was paid.
Good.
Yeah, the DCRP, I put that up a little bit because we're gonna be having more part-time people. Anybody making over 5,000 is supposed to be going to DCRP.
Okay,
We have to match that, so.
right, makes sense.
All right.
Low
120, low SAP, I just kept that standard. It seems like you put around 80,000 or
80,
so.
yeah, 80, 85.
Does that include automatic increase annually from IRS, which is, I think, what they dictate the increase and then annually basis?
Well, the thing is, I actually was looking at, what they were, funding for the past year, and they always funded around $80,000, so I think 20,000 is a pretty good leeway. I don't think that many people are going to put that much, because they have to have the hours and so on and so forth. And then I did speak with Wade, and he said normally it's about $100,000.
Including the EMT.
Yeah.
So this is both.
'Cause I know 2 years ago, we went over by 2,000. So I don't know where the number comes up, 100,000, but it should be, it should be close
Yeah,
enough.
it should be close enough. Well, normally what happens is that they try to fund it during the beginning of the year.
Mhm.
So you kind of get an idea before the budgets are even done, but I don't think that's happened here. But if we have to fund it towards the end of the year, we could probably move some money around if we need more.
have a question on 22.
Sure.
What are we spending on municipal court? We don't have a municipal court.
We pay for the judge and the prosecutor.
We're in a shared
Yes.
service, so we still have to,
That's our portion of it?
Yes.
Yes.
What is everybody else's portion?
I think everyone's agreements are a little bit different.
Is ours the most?
Time out. When they got rid of the
I
court,
remember.
the judge just signed a 3-year
Contract.
contract. I think it was a month before.
Right.
Yes,
it
I
was a
said that, I
month
said that on the record at
Yeah.
the
That was
meeting.
23,
Uh-huh.
24, and this year that should be ending. So that includes this? I'm guessing that
Probably
includes
is
that
last
judge's
year.
contract, so this
Contract,
should be the
yes.
last year of it. But this is our portion of the judge and the prosecutor over in municipal
But
court.
why would it be the last year? As long as we continue to share the municipal court, we have to continue paying a portion of the judge.
The judge that we hired in 23.
Yes,
right
that
before we went
contract,
over.
correct.
So this number should go less after this year.
Well, we
In
don't,
theory.
Well-
In theory.
ideally, it should be less, but
It
we
should
don't
be
know.
renegotiated, but that's not our, we don't do that.
It
But
would
then
be
you
less
also
if
can
we're
have
not
a
paying-
Police
paying our
officer
judge.
going over there to Andover now, right?
Well, they've been,
Or,
that's
well,
correct.
that's a cost also now.
Mhm.
Does that,
The numbers you have to shake out, like, what the numbers shake out, but I don't know, I don't have that number.
yeah, those were right. Those were-
So Jen, 22, this is the nutrition site you were looking for earlier, right?
Yeah, that's
In
the
earlier.
nutrition site.
Mhm.
That should be an appropriate
was gonna say,
revenue,
but
though,
that's
not
the
an
same-
appropriation.
That's the same amount, so I'm confused.
I thought the other one was 27.2, not 27.7.
Because this is the money we get from, so we get this exact amount from the county.
County.
Yes.
Mhm.
Right,
So
but
that's what we pay out for,
salary and wages.
Oh, that's the I got you.
Right.
I understand. So it's like, it's like,
Right.
they pay,
It comes
so
in and comes out.
it comes in and then it pays the salaries of the
Out,
2
exactly.
or 3 people that are there.
That are there.
Okay.
Yeah, and then also covers programming, it's like, so we're supposed to spend all that money in a year. So it's covers the salaries, but also any programming whatnot that we're supposed to cover. So like, it's supposed to always just end the year in a zero. It's supposed to be,
It's like wash.
yeah,
Got it. Okay. So they're not actually renting that space.
no, so that they're paying us a lease, but it's up to us how we use that. So we use that to offset their salaries.
Understood.
Yes.
Then we're going for the grants,
Yeah.
24. The first one is a matching portion for the municipal alliance, the 485, that's a percentage of that.
Mhm.
We have to pay the match. I did already work on safe and secure, so I know that number. And I also met with Lisa Lombardo from the county, and she gave me this 8,950 for the opioid settlement. So that's what I know so far that we know we should be getting.
Right. And the matching funds for the grants, the opioid settlement and the municipal alliance money is all used by the municipal alliance.
Yes,
It has to be used through that.
that.
Uh-huh.
Now, if you go to the next page, and this is where everything kind of, we don't know what's gonna get any NGT, OTA, all that stuff that, that may happen down the road. These are all grants that went away, 24A.
They went
Yeah.
away.
Well, you're not getting really much FEMA anymore. I mean, we had the grant writer looking, but
So then my question too is, this municipal aid for Kansas Way, the NJDOT, there's $190,000. We actually paved those roads last year?
that I don't know. I have to watch all that.
Because it
don't-
said it
yeah.
was paid or charged. But I don't remember paving any roads
didn't
last
pave
year.
any roads
We didn't
last
pave
year.
any roads last year.
Well, they paid somebody.
It might have been from a previous year,
Yeah.
because there, we did have a resolution that came through that was for 2023, that might
I was gonna say
actually be that.
municipal aid, the timeline on that is very long.
Yeah,
So
oh, it's
this is
long?
Probably
Years
from 2
behind.
years ago.
Yeah.
Did we, I don't,
I
I'm
think-
just trying to remember Rollins being paved.
What was the reasoning that we didn't pave last year again? Because the vendor that we had contracted with, they took on too many contracts.
And they were
Supplier.
unable to fulfill the contracts, and by the time that became clear, we didn't have a chance to go out to bid, because to go out to bid, it's, the time frame and whatnot, and then we'd be coming up on the cold weather. So there was not even a chance to rebid it out, so we lost that, and they're not honoring the contracts this year. So there's a new vendor now that's in the Morris County Co-op that is a reputable vendor, and we're gonna do what we we're supposed to do last year, this year, and then we're gonna go for more municipal aid to hopefully double up and start getting back
But
on
we've been
track.
using that municipal aid, right? That's aid that we've been using.
I assume it's on here.
Yes.
Cause I thought we got grant money last year for paving and we didn't use it.
Right, we didn't use it.
Okay, so this might be from 2023. Okay, got it.
This sounds unconventional, but is it possible to like charge a penalty to anybody we go into contract with and then they cannot fulfill the services that we've contracted with them, so they could pay us for screwing us over?
Yeah, so we did file a formal complaint with the co-op about that, and I don't think that a determination has been made yet on what's
Okay.
gonna actually happen, because it's every town that
Yeah,
uses that co-op
Wasn't just
also
one.
filed complaints.
Right,
So,
right. But any opportunity to make money, like,
They probably
Yeah.
have some kind of
That's what-
protection.
Let's do
from
it.
the-
Yeah.
From the state or the county.
Well, and that's, so that's
Exactly.
one drawback with using a co-op and not going out to bid is that, this is just
Yeah.
completely off topic, but, you know, at least when you do a bid, you get a bond and a surety that if they don't complete the work, you can go after
can-
them for money, but when you use a
Right.
co-op,
okay,
the co-op gets those things
Yeah.
and again, since it was every town, they probably
Got
used
us
all that
all.
up real darn quick, so
Yeah.
I don't know if we're gonna ever see anything from that. In a perfect world, we would, but you know, we just have to wait and see.
So on page 26, the capital improvement fund, that is the amount of money that we're gonna be spending on capital improvements.
Well, that's usually your down payment for all your projects. We kept that the same, but that's what we're going to address in the capital.
Got it.
because We don't really want to have to increase that.
Yeah.
So if we could, the projects can stay within that, within the 5%, that would be great.
Yeah.
If we go to 27, those are the actual costs that we're paying on the on anticipation notes and the interest on that. That's our debt schedule.
Got it.
Okay.
so what year are we going debt free?
Oh, we have a while. Not as bad as the sewer though, I guess. The sewer's.
Oh my God. Listen, that started at $59 million. They're down to 22 now.
Oh, when I saw that, I went, whoa.
Yeah.
But it's necessary. It is necessary. The 5-year emergency, I would think that's for your tax maps. I don't know if that's what you did going back in the day. That's usually what that's 5-year. Does that ring a bell to anybody? Tax map
Yeah, didn't
planning?
we just award that to John?
We
Or was it for your
awarded
reval maybe? One or the
it-
other?
that- maybe that was for
For the
reval.
reval
Yeah,
maybe?
that could've been
Okay,
reval.
for the reval,
Because
okay.
they have to be redone. Don't they have? to
We
be
did just
redone?
award the contract, so it wasn't Mont they backed out, so we just awarded the contract to a
Okay.
different vendor. for that.
And what's good is because, revals are costly, so the state does allow you to spread it out over 5 years.
That's nice.
So that's good.
So you've done coming all on
Not
time,
all
right?
the time, yeah. And when we get down to the bottom sheet, you can see we haven't gone up that much from last year with the total,
Which-
total
which sheet are you on?
expenses.
29.
29. And if you go to 30, that just kind of categorizes everything. Synopsis sheet of all the expenditures.
The shared services agreements, does that include the changes that we made with the fire marshal? Right, we're going to
Not
use the
yet, 'cause
county for
that,
that?
that still needs to be finalized by the county and state, but we actually won't be paying a cent for that shared
Yeah, they don't
service.
charge for that.
Oh, they
that's
don't?
good.
Okay.
We're saving some money.
We are
Yeah, because
saving
we
some
still have to vote on that too. It has to come
Yeah,
before
it
council,
hasn't
so we
come
haven't
back
even,
to-
it was just a discussion item.
Yeah, so it has to go to county for approval, state for approval, and then it'll come back here. We probably won't see it until June,
Wow.
but eventually.
I do want to go on to water and sewer. Basically, it's kind of kept the same as last year.
Yeah.
The auditor's reviewing it. He said he doesn't know if he's gonna make any changes. Sometimes what, like he mentioned, basically, sometimes you can, like Shelby and I work a lot with the utilities. Sometimes you can allocate salaries there. But he wants to make sure that the utilities themselves are viable also. So he's trying to see what, So,
Is the revenue that we bring in for water and sewer, does that cover the expense that we have, including the debt service and all that?
it does, yeah, they have to be equal. So if you look at it, if you actually go to that sheet and you could actually see what revenues were coming in,
What number?
if you go to page 31
Right,
and you see how you, the surplus that you use, right? The rents, like we anticipated rent 875, okay? But in 2024, you took in 984. So I don't know if people just used more water. I don't know. So
Is
this
it
is
all
kind of on the conservative
water?
side, so he may want to change that, I don't know.
We did have a drought last year.
Could be maybe,
People use less water. So your rents would be less.
In a drought, not if you're watering your lawn like me.
Oh, well.
Joe, you're not supposed to water your lawn.
in a drought.
My sprinkler system is
Dry
set
season,
on,
it's a dry season.
There you go.
Nobody has water, but
Thank you.
Joe's grass is
Dog
green.
changes on
Yeah.
it, right? Yeah, sorry.
Okay, then page 32, we did salaries, we paid 167 last year, I put a little increase there.
Mhm.
And with the expenses, but as you see with the utilities, just like the regular current budget, they have to balance out. So if you go to page 32B, there's a small amount of money for capital improvement fund in case we have anything going on in the water. And then we have to put in the payments like for the bond and all that stuff, right? Then you come down to 33 and we allocate some of the pension and stuff like that to that. We allocate some of that,
Mhm.
okay? And you'll see the revenues and the expenses equal.
Oh, yeah, they do.
So he may say, hey, listen, we don't need all of that, have a little flexibility, you know, but
Makes sense.
so. Then we'll go to the sewer,
Mhm.
that operates the same way. If you see the surplus, right, 347.6. The rents again, we were conservative, we put 3.75. Took in almost 3.9. So there's a little flexibility there. You go to the next page, salary and wages. We were at 321, we put 350. It still gives the other expensive 1.181 to fool around with. And we only really spent 906. But I feel let him, you know, he's gonna look at what he wants, what he thinks we should do.
Okay. When you say he's talking
The
about-
order. I mean, I know what I would do, but I think he's been here 4 or 5 years, so I figure.
Getting his input too would be
You know,
helpful. Sure.
Then if you go to 32B, I didn't put anything in down payments on improvements. I don't know if you're planning on doing anything in the sewer. I don't know if there's any projects for that or not. It seems like a lot of it's all been done. Because of the
Well,
borrowing and all that stuff, so I
it's
don't know.
Considered technically a fairly new sewer system,
System.
because it was the installation started in 2003, so the engineer said they still classify it, even though it's 23 years old, as a fairly new system.
And it seems like in 2024 there was a study done. Is that ringing a bell with anybody? It says I
Was
and I
that
study.
Hudson? Was that Hudson?
Yeah, that was the sewer project for that. It did,
That was
what
in
was it, additional
2024?
22 homes or whatever it was.
Yeah,
That
for
got
Hudson.
hooked up, yeah, for Hudson.
Yeah.
No, no,
Like
that was
22 or
been a- that would have
23?
been a revenue. This is an appropriation, so we didn't have a study last year in the sewers. We didn't do a study.
Well, they put some money into it and they said they did charge it out. Maybe it was from a prior year and they had to put it into the budget. Maybe it wasn't paid. That could have been
Yeah,
that it
We
wasn't
should
paid.
probably look into that.
So we want to check
Was
this
that,
one out.
was that sewer, or was that water?
That's sewer.
This is sewer. Okay. Then we go down to the bond principal. That's what that is. Okay, same thing for the interest, the loan, and the interest on the loans. Got it. Okay.
Can we just look at that study for the funding?
Yeah, and I
for
said.
Yeah, I put a
100,000?
note.
Double check.
I put a note
She's
there.
gonna,
She's
right?
got it.
Yep. Then you go to the next page and we got the contributions to the employment, the public, I'm sorry, the retirement system, social security, unemployment. And again, the revenues and the expenditures equal.
What is this utility assessment deficit? On 13.
I guess in
33.
I guess in 2024, that must have happened in 2024. I don't think it's in 28, 25. I think this was a problem with the program. I'm gonna check that also. 'cause
Oh, I
didn't
was
see
looking
that.
here, right here.
There's an empty.
Yeah, in 2024, right, but it shouldn't be in 2025, and I don't know why I just picked this up.
But what is it?
I don't know, I can ask him, there was probably a deficit in the water utility, I guess, last year. at some
Sewer.
point in time. Or sewer maybe, sewer, yeah, sewer. Did you say that it's sewer?
Yep.
Sewer, okay, yeah, sewer, I'm sorry, sewer, yeah. I can ask him what that was.
Yeah, this doesn't look right down here.
Yeah, this shouldn't have picked this up.
So this is all, okay.
That's why I'm saying there was a problem with some of the formulas. I didn't catch those two, but I put the ones in the front.
Got it.
I guess the state government, the formula was a little bit off, I guess.
Do we have the missing pages? Do we get this?
Yeah, did we get the missing pages?
No, what
So-
happened was, is that it's funny because it jumps from 37 to 38.
Yeah.
33 to 37.
33 to 37.
33, 37.
I don't know. if that's-
No, I'm sorry, 33 to 37, that's how it jumps on the state document, yeah, because what happens is you actually have to import more of the utility pages to spread it out, and that's where it ended, it jumps to, as a matter of fact, when I had my staff copy and everything, they were questioning that.
Okay.
Because they're like blank pages,
Yeah,
right? They're just
exactly,
like
yes.
blank
They were
pages.
blank pages,
They're
yeah.
just all lines like this.
So this
and
is like
X's
at
at the top.
1085 for 25, that shouldn't be, I don't even know how that's
Yeah.
calculated there. These are just comparatives from year to year. You can see basically the most important thing was the fund balance. If you look at page 39, you have 5.1 for 2024, then you have 6.4. So that's what he was talking about, that big drop.
You have, I don't wanna take a shot at them,
Mhm.
but the school is gonna be, the school taxes that are in here. Are those correct and up to date?
Well, this should be actually that he actually got from the A4, from the Board of Ed. I think it's called the A4, isn't it? From what I remember, I think it's called the A4.
They haven't passed their budget yet.
Oh, maybe he just made an estimate then, because the auditor put
Right.
that in there.
They have not, no.
No, I think
The
that.
resolution was
April-
up today.
Yeah,
Oh,
it did?
okay.
Yeah.
Bubbled up. So there's 5%.
Well, I'll ask him about
I don't
that.
know the exact number.
I
I
don't
have to go
remember what
back
it
and
is
listen.
actually.
I know the county is probably good.
On sheet 39, the 693, 660 under other expenditures and deductions from income, that number sounds familiar. What was? what's that from?
693, is that the capital improvement? No, that's not the capital improvement. That's very close to the capital improvement money.
Right,
663. Is that what
This
you're
is
thinking of?
693.
Potentially, I'm not quite sure what it's for. I know it was 100,000 in 23, so I'm
And
wondering
now it's.
why it was such a big
Oh,
jump
yeah,
to
right here.
693
Yeah,
and
the
You say it.
expenditures.
24.
I don't know what he had, where he got that from. I'll have to ask him.
Is that that's not the,
That could be from.
Other.
There's a lot of sheets, right? Here it is on sheet, go to 3B. The budget message, is what they call exceptions less. That's where that number's coming from, I believe.
What is that?
It actually allows you to reduce, so you actually, it's actually helped your budget because you're allowed to exclude all of that in the amount to be raised with your budget. So it kind of helped your budget cap, so you're not outside the 2% cap.
It's not the same number.
Oh, I see it.
It's not the same number?
No,
No.
one's 693, 660,
690.
that number's 663,
Oh, that's
950.
where I thought he would have gotten it from, then I'm not sure where he got that from.
Maybe we can find that out.
I could find out where he got that from.
Is Ray gonna be here for April 16th meeting? You said that, right? Okay. You can ask him too.
or did you say April?
can
'Cause I
ask
know
him
he's gonna be
tomorrow.
here in
What did I
May.
say?
No, he said he would be here for the April
He's
16th.
gonna be
did?
for
Okay.
introduction.
I'm
Okay.
pretty sure he said he would be here.
You can ask him.
I thought he was only coming to the May 23rd, but if
I
he
don't know
said
where he
that, that's
got
fine,
that from.
'cause I talked to him more recently than I did.
Yeah, we'll double check, but I'm pretty sure he said he was coming because he was gonna do the audit at the same time.
Is the same time as our introduction on the budget?
I believe so.
Okay.
Alright.
It's gonna be a long ass meeting.
Mhm.
Then page 40, you have a 6-year capital plan, of over 10,000, right? Let's start with the capital. This really is wish list. What I explained to
You wrote down.
Ray
Yeah, seriously.
was that I just only included the 5% down payment, the rest I put into debt. It did inform me that you don't really like to borrow. So,
Correct.
and that's fine.
Well, I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
We don't like to
Like to borrow.
That's his recommendation, or that's, he
No,
said,
that's
He
what he
said
said.
council doesn't normally like to borrow, this council doesn't normally like to borrow.
that's not true, at least from my perspective.
In the past,
Oh, okay.
I
Okay,
haven't.
In the past, okay,
I love to borrow.
all right, so I mean,
I think it depends on the interest.
Yes,
rate.
Absolutely.
agree, yes, and the
Not only
terms.
that, the other
There's
thing
good
is-
debt.
The other thing is, we're taught as CFOs that, basically, I'm buying a fire truck today, right? And all the residents are using the fire truck. But that fire truck, say it lasts 20, 30 years. Future residents are using that, so they feel that future residents should have to pay for that too, and they want to spend, have the bonding go out a little bit. That's kind of like what we're taught, really, so.
Mhm.
And if the
That
rates are
makes
good,
sense,
it does make sense.
Yeah.
So.
There's good debt.
So like I said, so these are wish lists, I'm told sometimes people don't need things and they just put it down there, whatever. I don't really know the status of that. I don't know if people had conversations before about what they need before the council. I don't know, first up is the fire department. They had radio upgrades of 50,000. I don't know, does council normally meet with departments to go over
Steve, what do
these?
you think
We
about
don't
this?
meet with departments, but last year it was a $25,000 request for radios,
So-
which we ended up not giving to them.
Last year, Wade, he was here at the budget work session. Wade was here and Pat was here.
Mhm.
And so they went through,
For the first one, because we had
Okay.
multiple.
we had two,
Two, I think,
Mhm.
maybe three.
So.
because that
you
would
know,
have been
for-
helpful to have
for
them here.
Capital purchases and private organizations, right, it gets amortized over whatever number of
Right.
years, how does it work? in this
Well,
form?
we don't really have depreciation amortization, we don't
Right.
really have that. Our amortization really consists of the fact that you're going to pay it down.
Right,
Okay, so you can pay it down, like if you look at this schedule here, it gives you the budget appropriations 2025, right, the capital, okay? And what you may want to raise in future years.
so if we do borrow for that equipment or for those capital improvements, then it's paid out over time and has less effect on the.
On the current
year's
budget. Exactly,
Okay.
right.
It's just a question of what capital projects you choose to allow.
Right,
Like Rachel was just saying, last year, the radio request was 25
Originally.
originally. Actually, the original request last year was the 50. The administrator at the time cut it down to 25, and then the council cut it down again to 13.
12.5.
Yeah,
Yep.
12.
Mhm.
I knew one of them would. I knew one of them would prefer the answer came from Jen, which is
Yeah.
fine. But again, like one of the things for future apparatus purchase for $200,000, the previous administrator removed that completely because of the budget being so tight, removed that completely off, and that was added into the budget to put $200,000 aside for the purchase of a new fire truck.
Right.
And the argument at the time from the previous administrator was, you're putting on an apparatus for an apparatus, we don't even know what you need. So right now, with the budget being as tight as it is, they removed
took
that
it out.
completely. They took the building repairs, because there is a wall that has to be repaired there. You can see that they spent 57,
No, that's another
no,
one.
that's not spent.
No, that's what I would borrow. I wouldn't.
But there's a wall that has to be repaired, that's in the inside of firehouse number 3 that I know of. The other things, I'm not really sure, but the same thing with the OEM radios was the same thing as, the 12.5. The previous administrator cut it down to 25, and then the council cut it down in half again. The replacement of the OEM vehicle, I don't know if that's a possibility, because we have a possibility of freeing up other vehicles now that we don't have a fire fire marshal. That opens up a
Right.
car for us, so, that's something that you could always.
so I think you're getting a sense for what each of these appropriations are for, like, radio upgrades for the fire department, that could be a safety thing, right? If the radios are intermittent, there's a problem with them, they don't have the range or coverage, or it could be a nice to have, but.
Well, I think we also have to asterisk, not to cut you off, I just want to emphasize on what you're saying. There are also, I know for DPW, like there are like OSHA requirements. There are things that we have to pay for, we can't cut because it's a requirement for them to meet the operating standards for their day-to-day. So do we know of the capital requests, like what we cannot touch?
Certainly, there's a lot of grants that we could chase after, and since we have a grant writer on board.
Yes.
But I do know that the future apparatus purchase for 200,000, I don't know what you're gonna buy for 200,000.
Well, it's like
Especially in a-
putting it aside for the future, though.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
it says
no, but I'm saying
estimated
across all
total
departments.
cost,
Yeah.
so it doesn't say future rollover.
Oh,
Well, I
I-
think it's a fire truck, right?
Right, it's a fire
Well, no,
truck.
no,
Yeah.
you put 200,000 in
It's
this
every
budget,
year.
200,000 in next
Next
budget,
budget.
Okay,
200,000
Yes.
That's
here.
perfectly fine, because what I
You're
think they're
setting money
chasing is a
aside.
ladder truck, which is like potentially like $1.5 to $2 million.
Well, this is a 6-year plan.
Right.
Yeah.
Right,
But
so
if
this
that's the
is,
case, this estimated cost should be 1.6.
Yes.
Okay, and
Yeah.
then you would allocate that all across, and then to be funded in future years would be the balance. You'd
Yeah.
have to have that
Well,
whole,
no,
because
'cause
that's really part of your capital.
what we did,
plan.
so what we
But
did
that-
what we did last year, so for this year, we are putting 200,000, because the full in cost is one amount, but for this year, this would be like the amount that we're setting aside for it. So if you were to break out like this, like last year, 25, 26, 27, it shows every year how much we're putting aside. It's not the full boat amount.
Right.
Is that, so
Well,
that's what that breakout is, ideally.
You have talked to a fire chief that's currently in position and ask him to clarify this.
mhm.
Well, I think,
And-
yeah, what Judy's saying is that the estimated total cost should be 1.2 million. Amounts
whatever that
reserved in
number is.
previous,
Yeah.
amount reserved in previous years should be what we've put aside already for that.
Right.
Then what we're putting aside for budget appropriation out of the budget, what we're gonna be putting in the capital, right? And then
Right,
how much is
exactly.
gonna be right across. So
Mhm.
that number, that 200,000 should be the total amount of the fire truck. Not what they're asking for us for this year, should be the total amount of the fire truck.
And you should know how many years out is
Correct,
realistic.
exactly.
Is that if you are, do we have a lot of tall buildings that you need, this is gonna have to happen in how many years, like 2 years, 3 years? Or is it a dream come true that might be good in 10, you know? I think you need to know the urgency of it as well as the total cost.
Now, in the past, if it was
potential.
done that way, that $200,000 probably would have been in capital improvement fund.
Mhm.
And you have to make sure that that's reserved for that project.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Otherwise, it kind of gets lost in the shuffle and someone else is gonna use that for their
Mhm.
project.
Right.
You
Yeah,
know,
in
so,
the
yeah.
past, they have promised, and then we end up with 100,000, and they promised like over 6 years, you'll have this much, and then the money's not there.
Right, exactly,
So
right.
you have, it
Yeah.
has to be locked in, but that's a
Yes.
conversation you have to have with fire chief, exactly what he's looking for,
Mm.
what the
Okay.
total cost is gonna look like, and then between you and him could figure out what the
Okay.
right solution is.
Well, the other thing too is the most recent truck that we just purchased, because they purchased the truck after July 15th of 2022 or 2023, the price of the truck alone went up like $200,000.
Mm.
So
Easily.
we don't know whatever the total price of a fire truck is. It's the current price today and not the current price,
Right.
you
In
know,
future,
the
right.
following
That's why I
year.
said you need to know urgency.
Right.
Anything
What
the
about
fire
in terms of
department
these
urgency.
amounts
Yeah.
here that he's asked for? Are we going to stay with that? We're going to,
So how much, now, this is what I know of previous budgets, and if I say it wrong, just correct me. But we used to kind of like almost snowball the debt. So whatever we were paying out in that year was how much we would go out for.
Right, exactly.
Do
right,
you
right.
have that number?
I don't have, but I can get it figured out.
Okay, because that's what we've been doing. We haven't been accruing additional debt,
Debt.
but we've just kind of
So you
been
just want to borrow.
paying,
what
well,
you-
I'm wondering what that number is.
Okay,
That we pay it off and then go out for the same amount so that we're not accruing more debt as we're going along
Well, yeah, and I mean, we have our fire committee meeting next week, but
tomorrow.
let's.
Wednesday.
17th, yeah,
Wednesday.
17 is next week, right?
Our
Mhm.
committee meeting is Wednesday.
7th, you're right, I'm sorry. So my like radio upgrades, that amount of money doesn't tell us how many radios they're asking for, how many active members they have. I think there's a lot of behind the scenes questions that I want to know before just approving any amount of money for them to go shopping with. Like, I want to know, do they need that or would they like to have that? Because the fire department also shares their radios with CERT. How active, CERT's fantastic, but how active is CERT? Do they actually use the radios? Like, is this number justifiable to spend on radios that are just gonna sit on a shelf and
okay.
collect dust?
And then in regards to the OEM vehicle, what I would want to know is how old is that vehicle?
Okay.
And how many miles does that vehicle have on it?
We will type up all the questions, by the way,
Okay.
too. So if you
Yeah,
guys
if
aren't.
you could, because I think some of these questions we have been kicking around
Okay.
And there might be some more detail that I have, you know.
Right,
yeah.
Let's see.
And we do have other additional vehicles now. that are sitting in the parking lot, right, Shelley?
Yeah, but I have those already earmarked for other things, not for OEM.
Okay.
I already deleted 2 capital requests for those 2 vehicles that are sitting out there. So
Well,
they're
and
not
we-
even in this.
And we know that for fire, they don't have any leftover money. Cause they went short on their budget last year as well with the unanticipated truck repairs that had to be made, so. I get nervous with the fire department numbers, is all I'm gonna say.
Can I make an odd suggestion?
No, of course.
How does everybody feel about meeting one more time with the department heads about the capital project?
I would prefer that,
I would too.
please.
Yeah, I think it needs to be done.
It's a
I
good
think it's
idea.
very clear that, you know, no decisions are really being made
Can
tonight.
you possibly move your meeting on Wednesday? Can we, does
Oh, yeah.
everybody, does
No.
Wednesday work for everybody?
I'm not here.
I'm not here.
Are you not here the rest of the week or?
I'm not
Tonight was the only day this week that.
Yeah,
Oh, I
everyone's
can do
available.
Wednesday, yeah. I
It would
can do
have to be
Wednesday.
Yeah,
next
Wednesday's
week.
not good for you. Wednesday's not good for Joe either. Yeah, this took us
How
like,
about-
how long did this take us? Like 6 days? to
Well,
about
this
next
is the
Monday?
only day this week.
I'm in Florida next week. I could dial in.
Darling.
Okay.
Yep.
Does that work for everybody?
According to this, 525 was paid out out of your bond anticipation notes and capital notes. You have nothing.
So that's
paid
what
out
we
long
have. We
term.
have 520, if we wanted to not
I can
accrue
do
any more
Wednesday.
debt,
Nobody else can do Wednesday.
would be
But-
525.
Well, Wednesday we have a council meeting.
Wednesday we have council.
This,
No,
this
not this
week?
week.
Not this week.
Next one, next.
No,
month.
I'm talking about before, because you have to pass it for next.
She's talking about the 9th.
Oh,
in 2
I'm
okay.
talking
days.
about the 9th. No, I'm talking about
The
the
14th.
14th.
Yep.
Monday the
Oh.
14th. Are you back for the 14th, Anthony?
14th on
Monday.
Monday.
I know, I was on March when I was
Do
looking
you know
for
where
it.
you are?
But I think
Uh,
committees could shake out a lot of these stuff
Yes.
before we meet up as a, as a council.
Yeah, but I think the entire council needs to know the answers to these
I agree,
questions.
I
Yeah.
agree.
It would help
Well,
when we
but-
had.
But committees,
You
the
could
the
disseminate
intention,
the
but
information if you want.
yes, but the intention of committees, we shouldn't be discussing budget items and
Right.
funding and stuff like that, so that's not an appropriate venue to have these discussions.
I think it
That's my
helps to have
understanding at
everybody-
least.
I think it helps to have everybody here because somebody asks a question, somebody
Then we all
else
hear
never
the-
would have
yeah.
thought of, they get the
Yeah,
answer.
to be honest, budget work sessions that I'm used to is all your department heads are at the meetings with their backup and it's a round table, but we also did it was an all-day affair. We did it on a Saturday and it was all day. And all the departments were present and everyone had everything. And we did literally line by line. Why'd your amount go up by this? Why do you need this? Why do you need, like, and you had to have the answers.
So what are you proposing Saturday, this Saturday?
Yeah.
I think in the interest of getting this timely introduced, if that's the only day that works for people, Saturday or Sunday, like I'm open to it, but I'm a little concerned because I don't think any questions were really answered tonight. I don't think, I didn't hear any direction or
Mhm.
decisions made up here. And, you know, again, for me, that's what I need to move forward and for Judy as well, because you know, she has to plug in all these things and I didn't hear any changes or cuts really. I just heard,
Right.
you know, we need clarification on this, which is totally fair, but I think we, you know, our backs are against the wall. We don't have time to really delve into this the way that we should have had the time. And that's just the unfortunate situation that we're all in.
Right.
Ideally, in a perfect world, the budget process would have been started at the end of last year. And you would have had a draft budget in front of you in February. Unfortunately, that's not the way it worked out. And it has taken until now, and there's still things that need to be clarified, but that's just the situation we're in. And, you know, we just frankly don't have the time to delve into this the way that I would
Mhm.
feel really comfortable delving into it. But I know that decisions need to be made and it's gonna have some real ramifications for people. So we need as much information as possible and to get as clear as possible. So if we have to do a Saturday or Sunday, you know, whatever, I think we do all need to meet though.
I think just as important as if the department head is asking for certain items,
Saturday.
we can't just sit up here and just say, no, unless we
You
get
know
his
what it
input.
is, yeah.
Well, that's the whole,
exactly.
that's the whole purpose, so
Yeah.
Shelby's saying like, if we all can you guys do any other days? Like, I
I could
will,
do any
if you
day.
want to meet at midnight on Sunday, I don't care,
Well,
like,
so I
what
think
days
the other
work to
thing that
get
we
this
also have
done?
to take into consideration is that, you know, next week is spring break for Hopakon, and there are a lot of people who are gonna be going away. Joe said he's leaving on Saturday night. If you wanted to do a Saturday, that's fine.
April 15th is taxes though.
Or I can dial in during the
Everybody did
week.
their taxes.
But
Mine are already done.
I'm flexible. I could dial
You're
in.
an accountant. Yours are-
Don't not meet because I'm away. I could always make myself available.
Are you here,
This Saturday, I'm not here.
At all?
are you here Sunday?
I'm away. I'm leaving Wednesday,
Okay, and you come back,
Monday.
When is our meeting?
Can you be here Monday night?
Yeah.
Okay, Monday night, everybody.
Monday night.
The
I mean, is
14th.
there a reason why we're wrapping up now or?
No.
Oh, no, listen,
We're not wrapping up.
Oh, I
no,
thought
I'm
we
just talking
were.
about having
I'm
the
sorry.
department heads, I'm just talking about having the department heads for the capital questions. that's
All right,
There's
so-
a number of open switches here yet, though, if there's some mistakes, right, or corrections that we.
We have to
need
look
make
into.
in
Couple
there, and it
corrections.
sounds
but
like-
let's
I
just
can
keep, let's
pull
just
up
keep
all the-
moving so we can get whatever concerns out.
Yeah,
So,
Judy, do you have all the sheets? I gave you all the budget sheets. I have them electronically, but maybe we just go through the sheets that we were given and the things that we can recall that people have said about things.
so like
Well, I
for,
mean,
for the
like,
fire
well, for the
department,
most part, like with the capital stuff, I think I do have, his stuff with me, you know, in DPW, I think this is kind of like self-explanatory, I mean. the
Well, I know
DPW
that the
ones, right?
Mason, well, a Mason dump can come off of here because we bought one at the end of last year.
And I was just
wait,
gonna ask,
before we
okay,
go forward though, for fire and OEM, the radio improvements, you have 50,000 for each line. OEM essentially is our fire department because it's the same person. So why are we getting a 50,000 request from both departments for the same thing?
That's a good question.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know if we could ask any questions on this wish list without the department heads here to justify it.
well, I think, but some of the stuff, like, how many, do you know how many trucks we bought DPW last year?
At least two. I know one was Mason dump at the end of the year, but
Well,
I think
I-
one was bought earlier in the year.
I understand what you're saying, but I also think listening to why he says he needs it is just as important in case something is on its way
Absolutely,
out
yeah.
or something is going, like, we should know that. Even if it's just a conversation to have now, because we keep it in our mind for the 2026 budget.
Yeah,
I
these are all-
think
these
he
are all-
should,
these are all just
especially
words on the piece
DPW.
of- But yeah, for like, I remember, sorry to cut you off, Marie, but I remember the roll-off truck when we met with Pat, there was a monetary component along with buying that
Right,
I would like to hear him explain. I forget what that was. It's in my notes at home, but I know there was a way for us to make money
Yes,
off of
because
that.
the
to see what that-
Cardboard,
the
Well, I don't know if it
cardboard.
was just, yeah,
it
but
was the cardboard.
there was something else though. It was the transportation, I think, too. of
Yeah,
it.
it was us being able to collect clean
Yeah.
cardboard and get money for it, and he could physically take it
Right.
to the facility.
So if we can get
and
answers
It was,
on
it
that.
was a new revenue stream is what it
Correct,
was.
correct.
Yes.
So yeah, like I said, I mean, we can go through each, we could nitpick all these.
And I can tell you the pole barn canopy at the recycling center is something that the state is making us do.
Yeah, he told me that's a stormwater requirement.
That's, yeah, it's a stormwater requirement.
Right, so that's.
What about baseball field regrading? Anybody know about? Is that?
Well, I know that on
Well,
the,
that's pretty obvious
Yeah,
of
for
what
the-
that
yeah.
is. And the fencing at Jefferson Field, that was.
I feel like
there-
that's been on there for like,
I think that there was a reason, I think that there was a reason.
a tree came down
Yeah.
last year on Jefferson Field.
But again,
broke
that's
the
why
fence.
having him here would be, you know,
Agreed.
ideal.
Agree more.
Yeah, I think in the future capital requests, they should write something up.
I agree.
Can
Sure.
decide.
Yeah. a written
You know,
narrative.
honestly, in the defense of everybody sitting here and everybody who's not here, I think it's just been so different.
We've
You
been
know,
rushed.
what it
really.
was in 2023 and what they were required to do was different from what happened in 2024. This one in 2025 has been really, really rushed, especially when you go through these, and some of these just came out 3 weeks ago.
Right.
That, because they've been looking for it and looking for it and looking for
Yeah.
it, so it
And
just,
I actually just changed the DPW. That was a different request. It was all changed.
Yeah, and again, I think I said this, I don't know if it was before the meeting started, but I first got the budget request back in November and did have meetings with everyone, and I frankly don't remember a lot of the detail at this point because
I
there's
think
so
that's-
much going
I
on.
think that's a good reason.
And yeah, so I know at one point I did know what all the reasons for things were, and there were things that were crossed off and deleted from what ended up going to Judy. And then I know Judy had further discussions with department heads. So I know that there was a lot more at one point of
But we don't
items in
have a
these
process
requests.
for them to write it up.
So
Because
think-
you know why that's important.
Yeah.
At the end of the year, after you do the thing that
Yeah.
they want you to do, right,
Well-
we're getting the value out of it.
yeah, so
Totally.
again, I want to rewind. So I came on at the end of October and, you know, in a perfect world, by that point, you already kind of have your budget stuff done.
Right, yeah.
You know, typically you start working on it over the summer and you lay out your 5-year plan
Right.
with your capital. You meet with all your departments, you kind of get your long range, you know
Right,
what's going on. I was in November, things were so hectic that I was just like, please just give me your requests, like, give me what, like, use what you used in 23 going into 24 as your template. So like some of them had an old spreadsheet that I guess had been used in years past. I'm like, please just give me numbers for 25, because I was trying to work with the then interim CFO to get something on for our temporary budget and just to start getting the ball rolling, because I was kind of panicking at that point of, I don't know what things look like here financially. I don't know where we're at. I don't know what 2025 is looking at. So I got all that then, and then, you know, fast forward to now, having Judy here and being able to go over everything again. I think there are some questions that have come up, and I know we've had a lot of discussions about, I don't know why they're asking for this, or I don't know if we really need this. And I know there were things that we eliminated. So I think it's just, right now, we just don't have the time to really do this the right way.
Criticizing it anyway, I'm
but-
just saying for, you know.
Yeah,
to move
no, I
forward,
think
right?
moving forward, there's gonna be a totally different process. for
Well, she's
next
been
year.
instilling, since day one, she's been trying to instill processes, because there have been no
There's
established
really
processes.
nothing
There's no process, and
across the board.
that's a bigger
No.
problem.
And, you know, again, before the meeting, we had a little bit of a discussion, and you know, I think it just needs to be said that the party's over. There was no one steering the ship for a while, and things just got way out of control. And now we're finally able to instill control.
Right.
So basically, we're starting from zero and
So even with
rebuilding.
these requests, though, I
Yeah.
would go back to the department heads
Yeah.
and ask them this week to go write up the rationale for each of the requests.
Yep.
Right. And,
Like
you know,
bullet points, it doesn't
Yeah,
have
yeah,
to be
that's- we're
an
not looking for a
essay.
novel.
But if they're gonna come here and, well, they should do
Let
that in
them work,
addition.
but that's why, yeah,
So it
that's
should
why
be
they were
both.
saying,
Right,
let's
right,
find
absolutely.
a second date sooner than later, so we can get this done, have the discussions with the department heads, get our questions answered, and we all be on the same page and move forward, because we, like Shelby said, we have no time. So like, we need to do this like yesterday.
It would be nice to get it ahead of time too, because it'll make the
Yeah.
meeting on Monday
Questions.
evening more efficient.
Well, so I guess so is the direction that we have another meeting and have the departments head here, or is the direction that we have them supply written narratives so that we have
Both.
that?
Both.
for
How about
the-
both?
Okay.
Both,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think both would help, because everybody has the information ahead of time. They can get their questions
Right,
going.
yep.
It's not like they're getting it that
That's right.
night.
Shelby,
Exactly.
I'm also wondering, in addition to that, if there is waste in these departments that we could maybe have you and Judy kind of do a deep dive and see.
We already planned that.
I wanna
What's going
add
on?
on,
We've started having those discussions.
Are you our Doge at Hopatcon? Is that what you're saying?
I hope so.
Kind of.
You could
Well,
say that, actually.
Every request that comes across my desk for a purchase, I say.
Judy's like, no.
Back up,
Yeah.
back up, back
No,
up.
actually, I think
I
we
need
flagged
quotes.
more things in Edmonds in the last 2 weeks than has probably been flagged in Edmonds, and I don't know how long.
is it possible
Would
to
that be
see how
possible?
much?
Would that be possible for you guys to do, that you guys are already planning on doing that? Is that
Oh,
accurate?
no, we're planning on doing that, definitely.
Yeah, but it probably can't
I-
get done by.
I was gonna
you
say,
know,
I can't.
for the
Oh, not
do
by
that.
next meeting. I'm just saying in
Yeah.
general.
Before the next year.
No. And
Yeah.
then also, we're gonna run, year-to-date budget reports. I told the girls in the office, I said, even before the bill list, we're going to run a budget. We're gonna see what's going to be on the bill list and what's gonna be afterwards. We're going to monitor all those accounts.
I'm sorry, Rachel.
No, that's okay, because we didn't know, so like for DPW, they had leftover capital that they had been saving, right? Is there any way to see how much leftover capital, if any, some of these departments have? So like they had these capital requests, like the DPW truck was purchased because there were several like capital accounts that had excess funding that they kind of lump sum together to purchase it, that we weren't, I guess, necessarily aware of.
I think, and Judy, feel free to jump in. I think I would rather not leave that up to the department heads. I would rather leave that up to council's disposal to, I don't, that was an extraneous circumstance where we had a truck that just was on its way out and we needed to replace it, right?
Mhm.
I don't want that to become a norm where department heads think that they have this capital to use at their leisure as long as they put it together correctly. I would rather that be within our control, because eventually it does return back to the
Right.
budget, so I don't.
Oh, no,
want
no, I
them to-
agree.
So I don't want to set that precedent that we're giving them that power, because I would rather that be up to, those of you up here to decide to
Right, right.
reallocate, or, for
Exactly.
us to look at, from an executive level, looking down to be like, oh, we have some capital, we can use that to help with this project we want to do, rather than be that department driven, because it's, and you see this in every organization, the department's always they're gonna have their wish list items, they're gonna have their
Mhm.
things are nice to haves, they're not need to haves, where I think, from top down, we operate on a more need to
Need.
have than nice to have, so
Is
I
it
I
a
don't
need or a
wanna,
want?
yeah, I don't wanna give.
Oh, no, no,
that
right,
power to
right, right.
them.
Maybe I'm saying it the wrong way.
Yeah, no, I think I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like, if they do have leftover money, like, we should know about it type of thing, because we didn't know that some departments had leftover capital to spend, and we were thrown off when the request came across
Mhm.
that was gonna be a thing. So like, is there a way for council to know, year end, if they requested this much capital, this is how much they actually used of that capital for the year?
Well, they're also supposed to be giving us end of year reports. Every
Well-
department is supposed to be giving the council an end of year report with all their inventory, what they have left
Mhm.
monetarily,
I-
what their plan is going forward. Like, I've read the code book, I know.
Well,
As,
to
um,
answer the capital, the way the capital works, and I actually had this conversation with a few people up in town hall. People say, oh, well, I have money in the capital budget, okay, but do I have cash in capital? There's certain times
no.
when you borrow money, okay? So the more you go out to borrow, it costs you money, okay?
Right.
So now, when we look at the budget and we see certain things have to be paid down, they're paying down at a certain point in time. So at that point in time, you say, well, now's the time to borrow because I'm paying down and I'm borrowing. So you
Mhm.
save money.
Right,
So you could say, well, I'm spending, but I don't have the money, then I have to borrow from the current fund, I gotta pay it back, it becomes this cycle.
Yeah.
And you have to
Mhm.
watch, otherwise you have all the over expenditures, you have to watch the grants and so on and so forth. The other thing is, I'm sure you're very familiar with a bond ordinance, right? So
Mhm.
everybody has their capital, blah, blah, and then you look at this and you say debt authorized, you have to have the bond ordinance, right? So the bond ordinance tells you what you can spend, and you set it up into the system. Now, if you haven't used it all, like Shelby was saying, well, then that gets canceled, and you have the option to do something else with that, because you already authorized the fact that you can go out and borrow for this.
Mhm.
So we could actually, when the project is done, run all those accounts, see what's available, what's left, and what you as a council want to do with that.
Which
Because
is
you have
why
to
we
go
need
through
that
and
master
you may,
list.
you may
of
find
what
that
we
maybe,
want.
maybe the street road project comes in less, right? 30,000 less. Maybe you want to do that for OEM or something like that, but that should be a decision that you make instead of department head saying, well, I have extra money and spend it all.
Mhm.
Oh, no, that's what I'm saying. I
Yeah,
think I wanna see,
wanna
those
see them,
numbers.
right?
I don't want to find out about them several years later and be like, oh, but we scraped this together because we have it and you can buy this. Like,
But I think the CFO could make you a printout every year, at the end of the
Exactly,
year,
right.
what the count is.
no, I know,
for
but
capital.
I'm reminding myself and everybody here, like, there were no processes. Like, we have people here doing the work now, like
Yeah.
the right way. So it's just,
No, there were processes, but it was just never followed.
no, there were no processes. It was
you know.
what's the saying? Animals are running the circus, whatever it is.
I did have one,
Inmates running
I
the
did have
prison.
one question, which I wasn't sure, maybe Shelby would know this. Wade mentioned something about police department, no CAD, and he was waiting something about a 9/11 desk. Is something going on with that with?
Oh,
equipment or a
they're
transfer
doing
or something,
upgrades,
or-
they're doing upgrades to dispatch, and I think it has to do with some of his radios, and the dispatch radios are different, but they
High band
could,
versus low band.
but they could purchase together to get
So
a
we don't
better
really
rate.
know then what the true cost would be at this
Yeah.
point. Okay, all right.
I think it was something like that, where like the projects could be, they're two separate projects, but they could be done together to get us a better cost.
And then I know it was mentioned that the police capital wasn't on here because I wanted to talk to you about, there was a mention of building upgrades, but is
Mhm.
that because we may use that fire prevention? I
So
don't know what,
Can
that,
we wait? I'm sorry. I want her to hurry up. Hurry up.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize she was.
No,
I'm
that's
sorry.
okay. I just don't want her to miss this part.
With her.
so the building upgrades are not considering that building is now an option to be
It's
used.
not.
So I don't know if that is going to be revisited, because I do know that the police have some ideas for use of that building, but I know that there are some other options available for that building as well, and, you know, obviously no decisions have really been made yet.
This is the police part of the budget?
Right.
Yeah,
So
So
at this
building
point,
upgrades?
at this point, should I put that in the budget or?
I think it's probably a conversation that you're gonna have to have as opposed to just putting it in there.
So how much is it? And
Well,
is
they
that-
we had 250 in the other side, but I didn't know if it was for that building that's gonna be freed up, or is it in the police department
it is
itself, or
for,
The dispatch center.
yeah, for this side,
this
that,
side?
that building being freed up is still technically.
So then it's not that building, so then
Yeah.
so it's in this building.
Because
okay.
originally they were gonna use
So
the
then that-
DEA money for upgrading OEM, and then what happened is, the DEA requirements, you are not authorized to use that for construction purposes,
Rental,
so
yes.
they couldn't do any work to that building. So, yeah, so they're
Right.
moving the upgrades to dispatch.
And you would think that had to be done in 2025? That building upgrade?
No,
No?
no, the 250 that they're asking for is for this side. The building on the other side is really kind of up in the air.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I don't know if the dispatch upgrades need to be
This year.
this year, or if it's phased and we start it this year and put some away and start the work,
Well, I know they have their new CAD system that they're up and running with, which is
Yeah.
what they needed to do.
yeah.
Well, I'll put it in anyway, and then I'll plan this whole out and we could see, the other thing is, it says telecom 15K. Now, we did some stuff for the migration for the 365 for the office, that was totally different, it's just to upgrade their phone system there.
I'm sorry, what page are you,
This has
what
to do with
sheet are you on?
dispatch.
She had, they had, actually, this came from Shelby from a long time ago
Oh,
when we
from
first
me?
started.
Oh, geez.
Oh,
I
we
found
don't
this with all
have-
the paperwork
We don't,
today.
yeah, we don't have the PD pages in here.
Because, what happened was everything else had changed, and this was like, kind of like in the shuffle of
Oh,
papers.
geez, I don't remember that.
And everything else on this had changed except for the
So
police.
do we have the police capital?
It's not in here.
No, it's not in
here.
this budget, because I came across it today, and I said to myself, I was gonna put it in, but I wasn't sure about that building, because I thought the building was the one that was gonna be freed up, but
No.
obviously it's not.
No,
Okay.
A question about the wellness center. I was talking to Doreen that works over there. She said there used to be that people donated a lot of money and there was a separate account that they kept
The
that money in.
trust.
The trust, yeah. What's the status of that? Do you know? The trust
This is an
money?
animal trust, we could.
Not,
talk about-
no, it's for people.
There is a wellness center trust. I
That-
thought there was like, last
know
year, wasn't
that.
there like 40,000 in
Yeah,
it
there
or
was almost
something?
50,000.
I have my old budget from last year.
That's, I have my,
It's
I
still
there.
have it right in front of me.
yeah, it's still there.
Jen, why do we have the same brain?
Okay, so getting back to the police, for the phone, it's a 15,000, she's saying it's a 15,000 increase.
The phone.
So I don't know if that just.
I don't have, can I see that? Cause I have.
I don't know if that would be a capital item or not. I think I'd put that in operating.
Well,
So small.
I think it'd be good to get all these questions answered, get them to write it up, and then
Yeah,
let's
okay.
review it, right? Because we really can't discuss it here, we don't know what it's about, we just kind of wasting time on it.
I don't know what that telecom is. I don't remember,
We can have the chief come in too.
because her capital sheet only has,
Yeah, she
building
was here
upgrades in the
last year,
vehicles,
so.
doesn't have anything else.
The other thing here, I'm not familiar with the vehicles. Do we lease them out?
No, so that's, I sent you today, but that's for next year.
So we just buy them straight out at the
We-
150?
That's what we've been doing, but
Okay.
we are planning to enter into a lease program next year where we're not buying vehicles anymore.
So we're not buying vehicles this year, right?
I think there's,
Well, we just purchased 2 for PD,
yeah, there's
100
those two.
140,000 for 2 fully
But
loaded.
that was last year, right?
No,
It's in
Oh,
just,
this year?
It's in this year's budget, 2025.
we just, we passed
We-
it on the
we-
bills list.
So they were approved last year.
Okay,
That's from
my
last year.
apologies,
It
yes.
takes time for them to get built out and everything.
So they were charged to 2024 budget?
Yes.
Okay. So we're not doing 2 new vehicles though, the police department this year. That was one of the packages.
That was one, yeah, that was.
Because
one of
usually
the
what they
requests
do
was
is they
2 more.
retire 2
Yeah,
out.
so
They're on a
2 and
cycle.
2.
Yeah.
So I think they are gonna buy the 2 more this year, and then next year it'll be the lease program. And I think we've already had that discussed in with the lease program. that
So with the
people asked to.
150, would you want to fund that totally? Like if you funded it totally in the current budget, right? What would happen, you would do what they call a fully funded ordinance and would go
That's-
into
that's what
capital.
that would
That's
have to
what they
be.
want to do,
That,
okay.
and then also for the fire, the extrication, that would have to be fully funded for this year, because that's a,
Fire, okay.
yeah, I know that's one that he said that they would need now, because their extricator is not
That's a j-
operational. So that's something that would have to be fully funded this year.
Okay, so let me just do
What was I looking for?
The Wellness Center,
I got it. I found it. What am I looking for specifically?
the Wellness Center Trust.
You should read that.
This?
Yeah.
No, this is last year's.
Oh.
I brought it for reference.
Oh, oh. How'd you do that?
Extrication is gonna be fully funded, okay, 74,000.
Also, whenever you get that settled, I have a question.
Now, with the building upgrades, I could put that in there and then maybe do a down payment, and then maybe if you decide to go with it, what to write some debt on that if you want, I mean, that's.
Building improvements, right?
Jen, my audit book is
We
in
need to
my
know
car.
the
Do you have
I'm
yours?
saying, but I'm just saying if that's, you know, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I think we need to know what they are more than anything, because Shelby doesn't have them on this current one, this current apps.
So we don't have the police request.
Well, they're.
Well, I had them
Shelby
here.
doesn't.
They have them.
I only have 2 vehicles and building improvements on my. request,
Judy
but I
has
don't
more.
remember-
Well, this was a real old one
Well,
that was
yeah,
kind of
I
like.
I can't find what backup went with that,
Yeah.
so I don't know what the other things that cause I typed that up, that
Yeah.
summary sheet.
Yeah.
And, cause that's what I gave to Joe actually when he was still
Yeah.
here, so this was like probably November, when I was originally scrambling with budget stuff,
Right,
so I don't remember what that is, to be honest.
and
with
then
you.
like I said, when I showed it to Pat, he says, oh, that's all has changed, he says, that's old stuff. So I
Yeah,
didn't know
so
what was
that's,
old and what was
so
new. and-
honestly,
right, you know?
that might even be able to, some of those things on there, like,
Well, anything that he had on the original list is not on his new list. He gave me a totally whole new list. So that's why I didn't know if any of these really pertained. Like a couple of things like carbon replacements, that changed. The only thing at the Gov pilot stayed, like a lot of these things just went by the wayside. So I didn't want to include it unless I really knew. And I thought maybe you would have an idea as to building upgrades and all that stuff. What's going on.
I don't remember what the upgrades, I know that one of the upgrades that they, to the dispatch or to the
OEM is off the table right now. They're not
Yeah.
upgrading that. The upgrades is just dispatch center.
oh, they withdrew the,
Because you were in the bathroom, the DEA money they can't use for construction purposes, only building upgrades.
yeah, I thought that the chief said that they had the money to do the upgrades to the OEM building. They have it.
That they were the upgrades to OEM was gonna be paid out of the forfeiture money, which they can't use.
Correct. And
For
then
that.
she said that she told me, I thought she told me that she had the money, they had the money in their budget to do the upgrades. I'll check with her.
Yeah, the upgrades, the forfeiture money upgrades, they're applying that to dispatch instead. Nothing is happening to OEM.
That's not what the chief told me last week, I don't think. That's what I'm saying.
right, so we'll have to have the chief or someone from PD be here. I guess, at the
That'll
next
make it
meeting,
easier.
How
And
much
to,
forfeiture money do we get on that?
$2
As much
million.
as they can.
We get a lot.
Really?
How much do you want?
How much do we
there's a lot.
typically get in a year?
In a year? I don't know. I think the program that we had was about $2 million. I don't know if we continue to get forfeiture money anymore.
But they are very specific about how you spend the money.
Right.
That's what.
And then I just had one question that I'm going through this, that's not in our budget, is the aid to the ambulance department. Okay.
I thought he said that was changing.
That's a.
They don't want it?
Changing your billing?
No, I thought we didn't get a chance to connect with Rob, but we had asked him about it at the beginning of the year, and I believe he said that they were looking at a different approach, so they had not sent in the request, but you and I haven't connected with him more recently to see what they were gonna do for this year.
First day I had 44E.
Yeah,
Kept
okay,
that
I must have missed
same.
it. I missed
Okay.
it. It's there. I just wanted to make sure it was there.
So all that DEA money, is that in here? in the-
No,
on the
that's
revenue
not our
side?
money. That's the
It's-
police
not
department's
for us.
money.
That goes to the police department
Yes.
budget? Okay,
Well,
so
it's not
that's,
even a budget, it's kind of like in a trust, because they get that money, put that in there.
right,
And I think she's allowed to only, I can spend it on certain things,
Yeah,
right?
but how much money are we talking about in an average year?
Well, again, we
Well,
it,
don't,
it depends, there's like a percentage that breaks out, depends on how much involvement Hopacon's had, there's a calculations behind the scenes versus the awarded amount, and then the chunk that we get broken off, there's
Yeah,
no
but are we
specific
talking
dollar amount.
$5,000? Are we talking $50,000, you know,
It
depends.
depends.
on a year?
There's a number figure that we were allocated, right now, I don't recall the amount
And
offhand.
who manages that?
Police, yeah.
Police department.
Well, the police department does with the state, because that's,
Right.
it comes out of
Okay,
the forfeiture money.
right. And that can be used towards upgrades and things the police department needs,
Specific things. that they need,
specific
yeah.
things, right? Okay.
Didn't think they bought the boat, didn't they get the boat?
Yeah,
That
they
money,
use the
she
boat
said
with
they
the
purchased
forfeiture
the
money.
boat with that money,
What do we use the vote for?
the water.
To patrol
We
the
took
roads.
out patrol.
Don't you know the noise
I'm
ordinance, the
tired
noise
now,
complaints have come down?
Have Packard police out there
Yes.
Yes,
patrolling? the
yes,
border?
they are.
They've been
We-
out actually
training
on
as
Lake
Marine
Hopatcon
police,
for the
yeah.
last 3 years, 4 years.
So the past few years has been a heavy police presence. I've never seen a Packard, I've always seen the state.
We
Well,
didn't have a
the
boat
boat,
We didn't
until
have the
this year.
boat. We
the-
were- we
no, no,
were-
we had the boat, the boat had broken down for a bit, so it was decommissioned, but it's been repaired,
What a
it's
new
on,
broken boat.
it was on the water.
No, we didn't buy a new broken boat. The state park has a boat that they never used, but
Okay.
because Hopatcon was, in their own boats
Mhm.
doing patrolling, they let them, they loaned the boat to us, but as soon as they loaned us the boat broke. So it was just all this time last year, spent, but Byram Cove, is great now that,
Yeah.
There's
there's.
a big police presence there.
Well, you have Hopatcon PD, Jefferson PD,
State police.
Roxbury PD,
Morris County
um,
Sheriff's there.
the sheriff's office, Morris
There
County
used to be a
Sheriff's
time there was just
Office.
one police boat on the lake, and after
Yeah.
8 o'clock, you didn't see anybody, and now they're all over the.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I
They're
like
still
the
not-
award ceremony, like Lieutenant Tracy was given the award because he started the Marine unit. So now that we can do that, that's, a huge accomplishment for
They
PD.
need
And it's a
to
great
start
working
later and
relationship
end
between the state
later,
troopers and the police
the
departments that surround the
annoyance
lake
at
and the
2
sheriff's
in the
office.
morning is
To
ridiculous.
where they actually can do things like the phone at the state troopers. You can actually call at midnight and report something and they take the report, whereas before you didn't get anything. So this relationship that we have now is just, it's a blessing, it really is.
I just wake up my husband and complain.
I thought it was just the state police that took care of that, but I have noticed
They,
that.
they shouldn't be there on Mondays and
towns have
Tuesdays.
had
They
boats
should
there.
stay later on Friday, Saturdays and Sundays. That's
Yeah.
the problem.
They stay past
Just bigger
10 o'clock.
Police
Not
presence when I was
usually,
growing
not,
up.
Yeah,
not,
they-
not Byron Bay.
They've been staying past 10, state troopers have been staying past 10 o'clock. And they have the award for the upgrade for the Marine area is getting upgraded.
That's good news.
It's providing value, it's good.
Well, the people on the lake certainly appreciate it and they've
Well,
done
people in
so
Byram
much.
Cove, I'm sure
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Well, they do.
They do a lot with safety. They board a lot of boats. Sometimes they issue tickets, sometimes they don't, but they do board a lot of boats to check for safety, especially now that everybody has to wear the life
Right,
vests
right,
for
right.
the new time and stuff. But they do. It's amazing how much work they actually do.
Right.
So is that the direction that we'll meet on
Monday?
Monday?
Do we want?
What time
do
are
we
you gonna
wanna
be late
start?
We have to email,
Monday, I'm away, yeah.
we have to
Not that
email
one.
and tell
What
them to
time?
give us an explanation and then
Yes, we
4
need
p.m. Monday,
to.
right?
sent the
I guess I
To
can download
open
the
it.
one.
Okay,
If
to
you
the
need me
department.
To the
to,
department.
What's a good time for everybody? Do you want to start earlier?
Can we start earlier?
I
Because I think-
work till 6:30 on Monday nights.
And then she has to drive.
And then I have to drive here from Roxbury, which takes me half an hour.
I thought you're fully remote.
No, that's my full-time job. This is my part-time
Part-
job.
And what is this?
Yeah,
Part-
this
part.
is, no, this is my, this is
like a
full,
full-time-
This is
like a
full.
full-time job, it is.
Yeah, I do, earliest I can do on Monday is 7.
Okay. 7's okay.
It's okay.
So, and then the questions, just so you guys know, we'll put our questions into an email and
Yeah,
send
that
them
would
to you
be
guys.
helpful. I already sent the email to department head asking for the written narratives by the end of the week.
Just send that out, to email, or email. I'm not gonna be here. so
Yeah,
I
I'll
can't
send
just-
whatever I get, I will compile into one email or one PDF and then email it to everyone,
Yeah, good.
by the end of day on Friday.
And the
And then-
other question too I have is with us doing the contract negotiations coming up, is the health insurance. The police department, I just want to make sure Judy knows, the police department, they're not set at a certain percentage, like their percentage towards the healthcare is whatever step they're at. So depending on the step, their percentage paying for health insurance is different. It's not just the same number across the board. Because I know that was something that
Doesn't it
was,
go by salary, according to chapter 78?
Mhm.
I mean, some towns.
well, yeah,
have
sorry,
capped it at
their salary,
25%
they're
a
different.
year.
Yes, their
Right.
steps. Yeah.
So what
correct.
I do is I had payroll, actually, we took the bill and we took to see what everybody was paying, what the premiums were, and then what the contributions were, and that's how.
We're in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I also asked that the next budget work session be advertised with a closed executive portion, so
Okay.
that we can discuss.
I don't
matters of
sleep.
personnel.
That's a good idea.
Because I think some
Almost
things need
15
to
and
be
12.
discussed, but we can't discuss them in open.
Oh, that's good. That's good. If I didn't have time, I don't know.
Is it possible to see if Ray is
I'm very
available
lucky.
for
For next time?
I
Monday?
need it. I need
Yeah.
it. Good
if you-
choice.
Thank you.
I know he's coming for Wednesday.
Mhm.
What's Wednesday? Oh, the
Meeting, the council meeting.
No, yeah. I thought
We
you
don't
were
know what
this
week it is,
Wednesday.
Christine.
I thought,
don't know.
I don't either. This Wednesday, not this
Not
Wednesday,
this
next
Wednesday.
Wednesday. Okay.
Anybody else?
So we're just, Shelby, you just want everything going to you, questions to
Please,
Shelby?
Yeah,
Shelby, if you could send out or some of it send out a Zoom invite for Monday.
Yeah.
And then Wednesday I could dial in as well if need be.
You don't want to be on speakerphone?
I could do with that, whatever you guys want to do.
Whatever's easier, I
Whatever's
guess.
easier is fine.
Yeah, no, he'll the Zoom, because it'll come in clear if he's here
yeah,
rather
but
than
if
over
we
there.
have, if we close,
Oh,
He had to get off.
yes,
He
we can
can't.
call you separately
yeah,
Yeah.
for executive.
Okay.
yeah.
He'd have to get off and then we can call him. Anybody else have questions? Then motion to adjourn?
Move.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you for coming on a Monday.